One day in the middle of the night, a loud scream was heard. The maiden rushed to check it out, and upon opening the door, the man uttered the single word healer. As his leg was now in a painful and horrifying state, the lady was left shocked. The red-headed man begged for a healer. Earlier that day, the man found himself in a pitiful state. This was none other than an adventurer from Azul named Loose Taker, who was relieved to have reached a village. The adventurer then began to curse the Dark Lane wolves, as despite knowing that they move in groups, he only expected to fight a few. Yet upon taking on 30 of them, he quickly realized that he wouldn't be able to escape unharmed since one of them was dangerous enough. His pain was getting more and more intense, and so he decided to seek a healer first. With that, Loose Taker made his way to the Adventurer's Guild in order to take out a loan. After handing him his receipt, the guild girl affirmed that his debt would be automatically repaid using the rewards of his next quest. Before urging him to go heal his wound, the man in great pain was overheard by someone as he expressed how hard it was to focus. And just as Loose Taker speculated that his injuries wouldn't let him reach the church, he was suddenly approached by someone. The man wearing all white asked him if he was seeking a healer, before affirming that his search ends right here, leaving the adventurer confused. After affirming that the services weren't expensive and were paid post-treatment, the adventurer grew suspicious of the one in all white, and so he asked for his healer's badge. Many frauds began to appear upon seeing how lucrative the healer's profession was, and so the Adventurer's Guild resorted to giving out the skill known as healer's badge. The adventurer asked the one in white to showcase his badge, seeing how only the fake ones used it so recklessly. But to his shock, the guild didn't grant him any due to his inability to use healing spells. Upon hearing this, the man resumed his way while mocking the one in white and treating him as a quack. The healer then pointed out the claw marks, stating that the adventurer's opponent must have been a powerful one. Confusion was then instilled as the one in the white coat pointed out how the fight must have happened nearby. Intrigue then turned into shock after the quack pointed out how the adventurer took on black maned wolves. The mysterious one then pointed out the injured ankle and how damaged the fighter's body must truly be. With that, Loose Taker was left utterly shocked upon seeing how precise this one's observation skills were. The smiling one then affirmed that despite his looks, his job was to treat people, before pointing out how expensive a priest was and how guild healers cost half. Yet when he demanded a cheaper price than both of them, the man lost all credibility in the eyes of the adventurer. With that being said, the injured one resumed his way as the shady man pointed out how useless healing spells will be and how he will suffer great pain. Loose Taker was then left annoyed, as it turned out that he and the mysterious white coat who asked him to come visit if he feels any pain were staying at the same place. Later that same night, the adventurer went to the church in order to get treated. Upon finishing up the healing, the priest demanded 620,000 gold for curing the services in the Sumneon Kang of Iber. The imposing price left the adventurer shocked. As he made his way to the inn, the man speculated that he got his money's worth, despite still feeling weird, yet he quickly decides to brush it off and pays the sensation no mind. Later the same night, his screams echoed through the inn as his leg began to swell up. Tears rolled down his eyes as a confusing pain was instilled, and so he urged the lady to call them a healer. Loose Taker was then left confused, seeing how he went to an expensive priest in order to be treated. But just then he recalled the white coat's words, stating how healing skills were useless in his condition, and how he proposed his services if the pain appears at night. With that, the man demanded to be treated by the sole magicless healer. It's just then he realized that he never got the man's name, Sumyeon Kang, when suddenly he made his entrance. The magicless healer had finally arrived. Quack and Mocker had crossed paths once again. The healer then dismissed Julia, before asking Loose Taker about the result of the expensive healers, yet the man pointed out that the results were obvious. The white coat then cracked a smile as his patient urged him to relieve him of pain. To the adventurer's shock, the mysterious man asked for 300,000 gold before proceeding with the treatments. This left the injured one in utter shock, so the smiling one affirmed that he wouldn't help unless he got his share. The man who tried to hide his anger claimed that he only wanted to know the reason behind the healer doubling his price. So the white coat explained that this was due to the pain being 3 times more intense. And just as he was about to exit the room due to the lack of funds, a hopeless man tried to bargain using his sword, pointing out that it was the only thing of value that he currently had, and that it could be easily resold for 200,000 gold. Upon examining the weapon, the quack grew suspicious of the said price. Yet he decided to make an exception and heal the man in exchange for his sword. The thankful adventurer was left shocked upon seeing his blade casually vanishing. As the examination began, the one in pain asked if his condition was fatal. So the quack affirmed that he would have cured him by force if his injuries were lethal, as he gently pressed the leg, leaving the man to scream in agony. The one in white pointed out how some cases were untreatable by healing spells, and how poison was one of them, leaving the man shocked. With that, the one in pain was handed a particular item, a fruit from the black lingonberry tree, which was a poisonous plant that could cause paralysis at mere contact. According to the one in white, these properties were the reason the black wolves dwelled around it, seeing how useful its paralyzing powers would be against any prey, making the man realize the true nature of his condition. With that, the adventurer began to panic and urged the healer to save him from a paralyzed leg. As he made a mysterious purple potion appear, the one in white affirmed that there was one cure. Loose Taker then began to shiver upon seeing the healer pull out a knife and demanded to know its use. So the quack affirmed that the black lingonberry antidote shouldn't be drank but directly applied to the wound, and how he would rather not use such methods, seeing how well his leg was restored. Yet the healer claimed that he had no other choice while the patient was left terrified. The quack then explained that he was truly unable to resort to healing spells, and how he didn't possess anything to deal with the pain, leaving the man to scream in agony as he opened his leg. The one in white asked his patient to stay still in order to not worsen his case. As he poured the first bottle, the healer pointed out how he was expected to use healing spells. The quack then decided to apply the second bottle while asking the man to either take the pain or succumb to it. The Samyeon Kang, who was a shady healer from Azul who had chosen this life as healers with no magic could only live as quacks. 3 years ago, our hero appeared in an unknown cave, yet the scenery seemed familiar as he was being given a new class. The man was now in a dimension filled with magic beasts and sorcery. Upon being assigned a class, our hero was intrigued as he was chosen as a healer in this new dimension. Yet luck was on his side as he wasn't the only Earthling here, as he and the rest of the travelers began to argue whether they should leave or stay in this new world. The protagonist related his situation to a fantasy novel, and especially the status window who designated him as a healer, which left him intrigued upon seeing a question mark in his title. With that being said, a lady proposed to seek survival before anything, seeing how their teamwork could allow them to counter the countless hordes of monsters. The protagonist was then left intrigued as she pointed out how everyone received classes and skills, and so he checking his skills. Our hero discovered that he possessed a skill that allowed precise cuts, one that allowed him to understand all languages, and one that enhanced his perception. This left him and others shocked as despite being a healer, he didn't possess any healing spells. Back to the present, at the end of the operation, the quack affirmed to his patient that it was a success and that he wouldn't be able to use his leg for a couple of days. This left Loose Taker deeply thankful, stating that the one in white had saved his life, yet Samyeon Kang affirmed that his life wasn't on the line. The adventurer was left stunned upon seeing how his leg was cured without resorting to magic. Before apologizing to our hero for treating him as a quack, Samyeon Kang affirmed that no harm was done, seeing how little plausible a healer with no heal was. The adventurer grew fond of the healer's kind nature. But then Samyeon Kang affirmed that he enjoyed seeing those who mock him begging for his help, making the cured one realize his true petty nature. Later on in the Bidsfall restaurant, our hero ordered an in-meal combo from the employee known as Julia. Samyeon Kang then decided to update his journal while waiting for the meal. The quack began to think of the new habits he picked up in this world, as this new dimension was filled with monsters and lethal contaminated areas. Each day here was a fight against death. Samyeon Kang was counting the days in hope of returning to his home world. But just then he noticed a sudden scream. Julia had injured herself. Samyeon Kang rushed to the lady and startled her, before asking Julia to let him examine her injury, yet she affirmed that she wasn't harmed, and so in order to save some time, our hero activated his observation eye and gazed into the wound. This made him realize that Julia had merely injured her finger and that stopping the bleeding would be enough. The lady then accepted the smiling one's services after he stated that an injured hand couldn't possibly prepare a proper meal. With that, our hero used stench in order to patch up the wounds, leaving the girl thankful. Samyeon Kang was then pleased to see that this earned him an additional point that could be used to spin the roulette. With that, our hero decided to use it 5 consecutive times. The first 4 earned him miserable rewards, which left the healer greatly annoyed. Yet the 5th left him pleased as it was a new skill. Samyeon Kang was then amazed upon seeing that the skill called Spray could turn a potion that he absorbed into mist while slightly enhancing its effects. Upon finishing his meal, the hero decided to test out his new skill by using a small health potion. The protagonist then injected the item into his body, before turning the red elixir into a crimson healing mist using Spray. This left Samyeon Kang pleased as this new power could be applied to patients and was more adequate than directly pouring the elixir on the injury. Just then our hero startled a passing man upon using the skill once again. Silence was then instilled as the man was knocked off his feet, and so feeling provoked, he quickly drew out his sword and did not accept our healer's apology. And while the swordsman assumed that the skill was an attack, our hero affirmed that it actually had restored his health bar, leaving the man utterly shocked. The passing man was pleased upon learning that our hero was a healer, and apologized for his ignorance since he was a Vladimir country bumpkin, which our hero didn't find surprising since this was a dimension crosser skill. Samyeon Kang was then left intrigued as the young one invited him to his party. The swordsman then explained that they were seeking a healer, and that he already had 3 people in his party. Samyeon Kang was intrigued by the nature of the quest, so the swordsman explained that they would be hunting rare monsters, and that the reward was 1,200,000 gold, leaving our hero quite impressed. This seemed like a good offer, seeing how he would be the only healer in the party. At the same time, at the Adventurers Guild, an injured man asked a healer to showcase his power. The young one affirmed that he was perfect to take on the role of their party's healer. Later on at the Adventurers Guild, the adventurers were left shocked, as well as Rick, who got tapped on the shoulder by our hero, who assumed that they would be a team of 4, not 5. With that being said, the party realized that they had recruited 2 healers by mistake. The man then explained to both of them that each individual's share will become smaller the bigger the party gets. Yet both of them affirmed that they had no problem with it. This made Sun Yeon Kang realize that he and the other healer were after the same thing. With that being said, the party leaders Sun Yeon Kang, Fariel, and our hero introduced themselves to each other. The other healer began to give him dark gazes. Later on, as they made their way into the woods, the girl began to state how relieved she was to have two healers by her side, while the young one was left offended by the man in white, as back at the guild when he introduced himself and began to blabber about his multiple healing skills, the party was left impressed. Yet all attention was then on our hero, who showcased his skill spray that left the party utterly amazed. This left the healer quite irritated by the one who had a mysterious skill. Sun Yeon Kang then asked about the nature of their target, so Fariel affirmed that it was a sewer, a monster who was pretty common on the continent. And while the party began to laugh, thinking that this was an easy and lucrative job, our hero fully grasped the seriousness of the situation. He then asked the adventurer if they had participated in such a quest before, yet all denied. Sun Yeon Kang then turned to the healer, who stated that he only had 1 year of experience. With that, Sun Yeon Kang proposed to go back to the village in order to get the necessary potions to take on a rare monster, yet the guild leader opposed it, seeing how far they were from it now. With that being said, the healer accused the one in white of being a coward and suggested that he simply retreat. And so Sun Yeon Kang decided to go back, leaving all in utter shock. Fariel claimed that this was the hero's loss, yet our protagonist declared that he would heal them after their defeat and charge each of them 300,000 gold. And so as he went on his way and the party began to discuss his poor behavior, the healer was particularly pleased with this outcome, as this meant that he could take the fabled rare item for himself. The sewer rat was then located. It emitted a dark and powerful aura. As the healer asked the party to have faith in his power, the attack began and all charged at the monster. Fariel tried to end it in one powerful punch, yet the monster had suddenly disappeared. The archer then felt alerted as the beast appeared right behind her, before letting out a fearsome roar. Its great power left the adventurers amazed, as it required more mana than usual. After checking on his party members, the healer decided to enhance their attacks with magic. But just then, he felt alerted, as the ground began to suddenly shake. The adventurers were shocked to see the giant monster charging at them along with a swarm of rats. With that, the monsters began to assault the humans. This left the healer utterly baffled, as his allies were getting easily defeated. He then noticed Rick running away and called him out for his cowardice. But just then, a portal suddenly opened in front of him. With that, Rick tried to make his escape and apologize for his inability to protect them. But to him and the healer's surprise, they were now face to face. This made the swordsmen realize that they had no way of escaping, and just as the healer was about to lose faith, an arriving presence pointed out that this outcome was expected. Just like that, the healer was shocked upon feeling a green magic envelope him. The hero asked them to think carefully, as no one would put such a high price on a mere rat. With that, Sun Yeon Kang regretted not asking more for his services. As the green magic began to repel the rats, the healer was shocked to see our hero arrive. Sun Yeon Kang pointed out how the rats were charging once again. He then recalled how Martbello claimed to have the skill Shield of Light, but quickly felt alerted as the young man began to cry about having no mana left. With that being said, the protagonist decided to use an item in order to restore the lost mana. Just like that, Absorb and Spray were used in order to enhance the effect of the mana regeneration potion on the young man. Seeing this left him utterly amazed, as he recalled how he was once told about such skill being impossible, and that he should be humble since the only ones who possessed such powers would be the great gods. The hero was then left confused as the young man suddenly bowed. Martbello, who began to panic, asked our hero which one of the gods he was, before apologizing for his insolence and swearing to let everyone know of his feats. Sun Yeon Kang then decided to keep silent in order to spare the young man the embarrassment. Meanwhile, the rats had cornered the unconscious adventurers and charged at them. Martbello repelled them by kicking one of them off, before chanting his spell, in order to cast Shield of Light, repelling all the rats. Our hero was surprised to see that the young one wasn't in just a mouth, before asking the young healer to stay out of his way. With that being said, the hero repelled some of the rats by absorbing a potion, and began to think of how this monster had such a high bounty because of his trap skill called Pride that allowed him to command his own kin. The monster then used area control to create a mini dungeon that traps any fleeing adventurer. For this sole reason, Sun Yeon Kang had brought an interdimensional insecticide, Sun Yeon Kang the Dentrol Mint Concentrate, which was a mortal poison for pests as well. As he charged at the target monster, the hero began to think of how he lacked poison for all present threats, before using spray and thinking of how it will tip the scales in his favor. Sun Yeon Kang then used the fact that the monster was distracted as an opportunity to grab and stab him in the skull using incision. The beast then let out a great scream of pain, before charging up front in order to slam the annoyed white coat into a nearby tree. With that, the rat slammed his own head into the wall. Our hero, who had escaped a crushing death, noticed the giant threat was oozing pride. Meanwhile, Martbello continued chanting his prayer in order to stay out of the hero's way, before noticing that no rat was charging at him. To his surprise, the one in white found himself overwhelmed by the numerous pests. The healer tried to propose a helping hand to Sun Yeon Kang, who quickly declined. before using a regeneration potion that would grant him constant regeneration, and with that being said, the quack had to slay the monster before the effects disappeared. But just as he was getting overwhelmed by the sheer numbers, the giant threat charged at him and suddenly bit his leg. This left our hero in an agonizing state of pain. He then slashed the monster's head in order to free himself from its grasp. This led to the healing potion's effect to disappear. As he used stench to patch up the wound, the hero pointed out how the monster must be proud of himself due to his unique status. Sun Yun Kang then felt alerted, as the giant one inflicted him with a debuff known as intense pressure that doubles mana cost and damage taken. This left our hero alerted, as this debuff would greatly restrict his use of mana, with that the sewer rats charge at the quack. Yet our hero was left unimpressed, as mana wasn't necessary to win this fight. Sun Yun Kang then used incision on the monster's vital parts, with that the monster was stabbed in the neck. As our hero pulled out his knife, the beast fell to the ground. Sun Yun Kang began to think that his injuries were in fact light wounds, and that he didn't see himself living to see the end of this day. Just then he was notified by the system that he had earned himself a reward along with achievement Rare 1v1 upon taking on the rat alone, which left him pleased. Yet all would have been for nothing if the healer had intervened. Sun Yun Kang was surprised to see that even the achievement reward was in the form of roulette. This allowed him to acquire the skill Throw that doubles damage through accuracy, and while enhancing the effect of the projectile. This left our hero disappointed, but just then he focused on the buff part and realized that even the weakest of poison projectiles could become a lethal weapon. But just as something had got his attention, he was suddenly approached by the healer. But as the young man began to babble about the fact that he wouldn't speak a word about today, the protagonist brushed him off and asked him to wake up the rest of the party. With that, resurrection was used. Just like that, the adventurers began to wake up. Fariel was terrified upon seeing the giant rat head above him. Sun Yun Kang then startled him upon asking about his little sleep. The party leader asked the one in white if he was the one who slayed the rat, which he sarcastically confirmed. This left Fariel utterly amazed, as this man was a healer. With that being said, the quack charged them 300,000 gold each, before turning to the monster's corpse and slicing it open to everyone's shock. Just like that, the hero had realized his main purpose, earning him a rare item of an unknown name. Our hero stated that he had remorse upon taking the entire reward. Yet the party leader affirmed that he deserves it since he saved them also. In order to make it up, Sun Yun Kang decided to offer them a drink. Yet the girl affirmed that they couldn't accept, seeing how they will return to their home the next day. The party leader explained to the confused protagonist that he and the other two originated from the same village, and that they will be giving up the life of adventurers, seeing how they had almost met their end in the chase of money. Our hero, who knew very well how lucrative this job is, understood their point of view, as the high rewards came with high risks. With that, the healer bid the rest of the party farewell to the other. Sun Yun Kang directed his invite to the young one, and he affirmed that he was forbidden from consuming ale. The hero then asked the young one to treat each other as complete strangers, but was quickly left confused as the boy assumed that he just wanted to conceal his true identity for the time being. With that, the young one made his way to the exit while mumbling about how he was still unworthy of witnessing our hero's celestial arrival. This left the quack amazed, as he had gained an unexpected worshipper. But he decided to pay the matter no mind and rushed to appraise his new item. Upon arriving at the relic appraiser, our hero was greeted by the one put in charge by the guild. All items gained from monsters were sealed inside marbles and could only be used upon being unshackled. The hero then presented his item to the man. Upon taking a first look, the man was left amazed, which made the quack assume that he had stumbled upon quite the treasure. And so began the appraisal. Upon finishing it, the man affirmed that the marble contained a C class, which was a talisman containing a small life. This left our hero intrigued, as the shop owner proposed to buy it off for 120,000 gold instead of 80,000. With that being said, our hero pulled out a potion and poured it on the marble, yet to no results. Sun Yun Kang explained that this was a Latacia potion, which was a popular mixture that glows upon touching blood. The hero then explained that he used it on the knife that he used to slay the rare beast. The blade then began to glow as our hero poured the potion on it and explained that despite cleaning it, some blood still remained on the metal. The shop owner then began to panic, as our hero stated that the marbles should have more blood on the knife, seeing how it resided in the insides of the monster. But there was one exception. Suddenly, Sun Yun Kang grabbed the man's head and slammed it into the table while stating that this marble was a fake. And so the beating carried on, until the man found himself covered in blood and potion. He tried to defend himself by stating that the guild was on his side, yet Sun Yun Kang wasn't impressed, as he slammed the man's head into the table even harder. And just as the man couldn't take it anymore, our hero used stench to heal his injuries, leaving him shocked. A scary-looking one in white then remembered that he hadn't given his name yet, while the one with an eye patch realized his true profession. Our hero introduced himself as a healer, which left the man feeling alerted. According to a saying in the continent, one shouldn't be captured if you scam a healer, seeing how the one who brings in relics has either incredible strength or a kink for monster hunting. With that, the man realized how true his master's words were, seeing how a healer could fix up someone he had already beaten just to make him suffer once again. Yet the shopkeeper felt intrigued, as no holy power was detected. According to him, the marble contained a B+ ranked item named the focus ring. Our hero was then left shocked as the shopkeeper revealed that its true worth was 6,400,000 gold, which also left him quite annoyed, stating how he was almost deceived into selling it at a much lower price. When he was asked for the reason behind its enormous worth, it was revealed that the focus ring helped its wielder concentrate and had many benefits, which made it vital to mages. Sun Yun Kang was pleased by this reward of seeing how it had many users. With that being said, the hero decided to unseal it and ask for a talisman as well, which the one whom he asked to stop the scams affirmed that he had to pay for the C-rank relic. Later that night, inside a pub, our hero began to think of how his funds could provide him with a spectacular night. But just then, one of the staff members affirmed that there weren't any places left, and asked him to either sit at an occupied table or go somewhere else, when suddenly, someone noticed him. The man's voice seemed familiar to Sun Yun Kang, as it was none other than Ho-jong Kim, who seemed glad to have met him. The two of them began to catch up as their last encounter occurred 2 months ago. Ho-jong Kim then pointed out how happy he was to see Sun Yun Kang today, seeing how he received a generous pay. The man then began to brag about having earned 2 million gold and how he would be inviting Sun Yun Kang, who realized that beer wasn't worth the occasion tonight. Ho-jong Kim was left shocked as his friend made a rather expensive suggestion. And just as the man was about to complain about the price, our hero let out a laugh and affirmed that he will be the one paying tonight as he asked for a meal. Later on, Ho-jong Kim expressed how surprised he was to see that the protagonist was being more successful than him. Sun Yun Kang affirmed that fortune was just on his side today. Ho-jong Kim then asked him if he required a stamina potion, pointing out how annoying worrying about stamina must be. The man confirmed that his state was irritating. Stamina, which was different from HP, didn't need potions to be restored, yet our hero needed it in order to use his skills. At first, Sun Yun Kang assumed that him being an earthling was the reason behind him being magicless. Yet it turned out that others from like Ho-jong Kim were able to use spells unlike him. The man then pointed out how it must also have its benefits, which our hero confirmed, seeing how cheaper stamina potions were compared to mana. With that being said, Ho-jong Kim proposed a toast to them and all those who have pitiful powers. The earthlings cheerfully banged their cups. Later on, Ho-jong Kim, while drinking, got carried away. With that, Sun Yun Kang decided to ask him about a certain matter which Ho-jong Kim assumed to be important, and quickly realized that the matter must be vital, seeing how Sun Yun Kang demanded to turn off the universal translator skill. As both of them were plunged into a sea of alien words, Ho-jong Kim asked our hero if he had found a way back to Earth, which he denied. Instead, he wanted to talk about his new skill, seeing how the skill throw had a black star in its title. This left Ho-jong Kim confused, as our hero affirmed that he also hadn't come across something like that, and how it exceeded a regular skill. And so Ho-jong Kim speculated that he should also go slay rare monsters despite not knowing anything about it. But just then, he remembered a past party member of his who had a similar skill. When asked about his name, the man struggled to remember, but in the end decided to call him Jaeon Kim, which left our hero intrigued. Despite being an earthling, the said man was rumored to have surpassed the rest of them, seeing how he slayed an enemy wave by himself. And when asked about the reason behind his immense strength, the earthling revealed that he possessed a black star skill. The man was then caught screaming something random on the last day of the mission. He began to talk about how he had finally obtained 4 skills, and how this might be the way back to Earth. Hearing this left our hero in total amazement. The night out reached its end. The man who fell in love with the alcohol affirmed to his friend that he will be the one treating him to the expensive drink next time, which he gladly accepts. Our hero then affirmed that he will be going to buy potions for his friends who will be returning to his inn, and so they parted ways. With that, Sun Yun Kang began to remember his friend's words about the star skills and how once one obtains 4, something will happen which makes the matter worth investigating. Seeing how it must be a way back to Earth, yet our hero was left intrigued by the one who collected 4, seeing how he almost met his end trying to obtain one. He then realized how shocking it is to see his friend forgetting such trivial details. With that being said, our hero decided to work well tomorrow in order to earn additional points. The next day at the market of the Hein village, those passing by were left intrigued upon seeing a sign that assures that a healer will cure them for cheap and is even willing to bargain for his services. The smiling Sun Yun Kang then welcomed his potential customers. Upon being questioned about his profession, our hero affirmed that he cures people for a living, when suddenly he was recognized by a passing lady who began to mock him for being a fake healer who didn't receive a healing badge for having no magic. And so he became the subject of the crowd's bad mouths. And just like that, the front of his stand was rendered empty, yet it was no surprise. But just then, the healer, who was aware that his customers weren't the fighters, was approached by a lady. His true clients were folks like the one who asked him if he was truly open for bargain, before proposing a basket of potatoes in exchange for his services. A smile was then drawn on the lady's face as the young man accepted and asked her about her condition. So she explains how she injured her arm on the farm. Fear then covered her face as she explained how someone she knew died from an infected finger upon being injured by a hoe. Sun Yun Kang quickly realized that the disease in question was an incurable bacteria known as tetanus, seeing how no vaccine existed in this world. With that, he uses his observation skills in order to properly assess the state of the wound. It turned out that the injury was, in fact, a hoof scratch from 2 days ago, which could get infected if the bandage isn't regularly renewed. This left the quack relieved as it wasn't the terrifying disease. He then reassured the lady that her state wasn't lethal. With that being said, he handed her an item, claiming it to be the cure. Our hero presented a cream as a semi-solid potion, and asked her to apply it on the wound in the morning and at night, as well as change her bandage. But just then, he realized that the lady didn't possess one, and so he excused himself. In order to craft the needed tissue using his fabric-making skill on some hay, Sun Kang even decided to make some more, seeing how pricey it was for the commoners. Upon being treated, the lady felt very thankful and asked her lord to protect the kind young man. The protagonist was pleased with this start, seeing how it earned him some points. Upon seeing this, the villagers' attention was attracted, and so they rushed to the healer who didn't demand money to check up on them. This left our hero quite pleased, as he earned a total of 172 points along with the thankful prayers of the villagers. Sun Kang was overjoyed by how little challenge he had to face in order to get some points. Despite hunting being a decent option, our hero preferred to farm points by curing the villagers. But just as he began to wish for all of his future customers to be like the humble villagers, his case of potions was suddenly hit, which attracted our hero's attention, as a mysterious figure called him out for the poor state of his shop, before demanding some potions. Upon seeing what just happened, our hero, who was greatly irritated, tried his best to contain his anger, and asked the blonde one what he sought exactly. Our hero was then intrigued by the boy, seeing how he was clearly one of noble blood present in a street vendor shop like his. Sun Kang then reached out to his semi-solid potions, and affirmed to the young one that this was all he had to currently offer. This made the blonde one and his bodyguard realize that this was the man they were seeking. The arrogant one then pointed out that the healer was fortunate, stating how he was Lihart Irelev, the third son of his house. This intrigued the protagonist, seeing how the boy's family had an imposing word in this domain. The quack then asked for the reason behind their presence, and so the guard politely bowed, and stated that the head of their house had formerly required his services. Hearing this left the hero intrigued, as there was no apparent reason for a prideful house to request his services. The young one began to complain to the guards, stating that he could have come here on his own. The man affirmed that he was only obeying the words of his master. With that being said, a sack was thrown to our hero. The young one then burst out in anger, seeing how Sun Kang was clueless about what was inside the sack. So the guard explained that they were the medical herbs necessary to cleanse Teheth. This made the man realize that this was about the infected zone of the West. The region in question was once a paradise, yet now it was mysteriously filled with poison, and why the head of the house and his forces were subjected to the plague they were fighting, which our hero immediately guessed. With that being said, the guard explained that one of their servants had bought a potion from this stand, and how challenging it was for them due to their potion dealer being far away. This made Sun Kang crack a smile upon finally understanding the reason behind the presence of the third son, as he was the only one able to craft cream-like potions, which were more adequate to treat contaminations than liquids. The noble was pleased to see that the healer realized that his job was to produce the potions, and affirmed that his father could turn our hero's miserable shop into a decent workplace. Lihart Irelev then decided to simplify it all by affirming to our hero that he was getting an honor that he didn't deserve. With that being said, the blonde one ordered the healer to go craft in the potion. Yet upon hearing him reject the order, the commander and his bodyguard were left quite shocked. With that, the blonde one, who grew angrier by the second, asked the healer to repeat what he just said. His servant had to hold him down as he was being rejected for a second time. The blonde one burst in anger, affirming that the offer of his father was too generous for those of the quack's kind. But our hero explained that he wasn't the person that they needed, seeing how he wasn't a pharmacist. Sun Kang was very well aware of how lucrative this job was, yet taking it on would result in a career full of similar missions, and his main concern was to earn points. But the main reason behind his refusal was the insolence demonstrated by the young noble. Just then, a young boy came rushing to the healer. Our hero was shocked to see the boy named Wall crying while carrying his brother, who seemed in a really bad state. The observation skill then revealed that the boy's finger was torn off by a sickle, which placed his life on the line. Our hero decided to disinfect the wound, seeing how it was made with a dirty farming tool. Laughter was then heard as Wall grew worried sick about his brother's safety. The noble found this scene to be pitiful and affirmed that a pharmacist like our hero couldn't treat such a case, seeing how he was only able to deal with diseases and poisons. The arrogant aristocrat then showcased his skill healing light and affirmed that only a healer like himself would be able to save the boy. Sun Kang was shocked upon learning that he and the arrogant one shared the same class. Yet when he asked him to help the boy, the man refused, stating that commoners didn't have the funds to afford his services, that he was willing to make an exception if Sun Kang agreed to take his father's proposition after apologizing for his rude behavior. This seems suspicious to our hero, as an aristocrat would never lower himself to such a task. But then he realized that the noble was in desperate need of his help. With that being said, Sun Kang declined and decided to heal the boy himself, leaving the blonde one enraged. Sun Kang explained that his only task was to reattach the finger. He then felt glad to have made Celine earlier, as it helped him quickly disinfect the wound. And just as the blonde one began to mock him, affirming that the patient was a boy, not a toy, the hero was left annoyed by this disturbance. The mocking noble then decided to put his necklace on the line as he affirmed that the pharmacist wouldn't be able to help the boy. And so with that being said, the hero accepted and claimed that if he manages to stitch back the finger, the noble would have to heal and feed the commoners for 3 days. The prideful one had no choice but to agree, and added that in case of failure, Sun Kang would have to renounce his title of healer and accept his father's deal. Despite the hero's claim, he was well aware of how challenging reattaching a finger in the middle of the market, yet managed to ease the task by using his skills to craft a thread from the mana potion, which was ideal for surgery. With that, observation skill was used in order to give him a better view of the boy's hand. And just as the aristocrat began to think that the quack had no chance, he and the rest of them were suddenly left shocked. The protagonist had established a few rules upon living as an illegal doctor, the 5th being that one shouldn't wait for advanced skills, but combine what he has with his knowledge and use them at the peak of their potential. Just like that, Sun Kang was able to reattach the young one's finger. With that, the operation was a success. The challenging operation was possible due to the right combination of skills. And despite it being a heavy burden on the brain, the item focus ring helped our hero ease the task. But just as he was about to patch up the skin, he was left shocked, as his stamina had almost run out, and so he rushed to reattach the finger before the bar becomes completely empty. With that being said, the thread was cut. Our hero was pleased as the finger was fully reattached. The noble began to shiver in fear as the commoner was overjoyed by this success. The quack felt relieved as he would have lost consciousness if the operation lasted a few seconds longer. With that being said, he decided to restore his stamina and used the skill fully recovered in order to fully restore the young one's finger. With that, the operation came to an end. The noble was left particularly irritated and affirmed that the finger surely wouldn't work. So the quack proposed to put it to the test, making the noble use the skill resurrection on the unconscious patient. The boy woke up to the 2 men and began to move his hand on the doctor's orders. This left the quack satisfied, while the aristocrat was left stunned. Sun Kang then turned to the man, reminding him of their bet. Just like that, the 3rd son of the House Lihart found himself giving up his necklace of fortune and offering his services to the people for free. All were left shocked. The defeated one then threw his necklace on the ground, admitting the hero's painful victory, making the healer call him out for his vulgar manners. Just like that, the quack earned the necklace of fortune that decreases one's bad luck when being used. Wall then thanked the doctor for his help and asked him if he truly believed that the aristocrat was a man of his word. The quack explained that his father must be a man of honor, who will surely force him, and asked them to tell everyone that free meals and healing services were now available in the square. Later that night in the Bitsfall Inn, Julia asked the hero if he was aware of what just happened. The doctor, who was exhausted, asked to be enlightened. She revealed to the hero that the 3rd son of House Erlev is giving free meals to the many people passing by in his new free clinic inside the square. And when the lady pointed out that the doctor's business would surely be affected, the hero explained that this was of little importance, seeing how the folks were getting helped. This made him appear like an angelic figure in Julia's mind, yet in reality, Sun Kang secretly enjoyed the men's misery. The man then asked her to use the potatoes that he brought to cook him a meal. The lady became determined to serve him a plate that would surely cheer him up, which he couldn't help but admire. But in reality, our hero knew very well that a simple meal couldn't possibly help, seeing how he mostly got miserable rewards from 10 expensive and consecutive roulette spins. Then again, the quack was aware that only receiving skills from the system would be something strange. His comfort was obtaining the item known as the Crystal of Vitality and a ticket that expands his inventory. The quack quickly decided to use the second item, earning him an extra slot. And just as he admired the stamina-increasing crystal, he was suddenly approached by someone who was well aware of its powers. This someone turned out to be Hojang, who came here for the inn's delicious food. Hojang wanted to use his opportunity to show his friend his crystal enhancement ticket, and felt proud of himself to offer this ticket to the quack. Yet upon seeing it, the quack pointed out how the ticket was for fortune-making, making the friend assume that he didn't desire it, so he quickly took it to clear all misunderstandings. Just then, the man noticed. Still had the focus ring and assumed that he decided to keep it, so Sun Kang revealed that he only needed it in order to solve a certain problem. The healer then explained that no random seller should be dealt with when selling this rare ring. And so Hojang proposed to point the quack to a decent merchant. Let's run to a shop that sells weapons. Sun Kang was impressed with the quality of the shop, seeing how it was his friend's recommendation. The shop owner was then greeted by the young man, who explained that he was here to sell him some items. Sun Kang was then left confused as the man pointed out how the necklace was broken. This left him annoyed by the noble, seeing how he certainly damaged it by throwing it on the ground. But irritation was then replaced with thankfulness upon hearing the necklace's worth. Our hero then presented his rare item to the shopkeeper, who quickly recognized its value. With that being said, the hero decided to look around the shop as the old man checked out his records. The quack was looking for any useful item when he stumbled upon a crossbow, and just as he reached to grab it, wondering if he should ask about the long-range weapon, something unexpected happened. Our hero was left confused, as the system mysteriously urged him to get this weapon at all costs. Our hero was unable to fully understand it, as up until now the system only made statements, yet never had it ordered him or issued a command. This made Sun Kang feel as if someone was observing him. But just then, he was snapped back to reality by the shopkeeper, who came to check on him. So the healer claimed to have been focusing on his own thoughts. With that being said, he asked if the weapon in question was unique. According to the old man, this was the rare Freya crossbow that was just extracted from a relic. The shopkeeper explained how it pairs with the connection pouch of Freya, and how any item placed in the pouch will turn into ammo for the crossbow. After he explains how it can shoot 5 projectiles in a row to the young man, the impressed one asked about the weapon's price, speculating it to be a lot. Sun Kang quickly realized that he couldn't afford the crossbow, seeing how it cost 15 million gold. But the old man proposed a small discount for immediate purchase, and stated to the hero that he will buy his focus ring for 6.5 million, seeing how this was the last market price. The healer quickly realized that selling the necklace and the ring wouldn't be enough to purchase the crossbow even when backed up by his emergency funds, and so he decides to put a little theory to the test, and ask whoever was watching him to send him 4 million gold. But to no response, which didn't quite surprise the quack. With that being said, the old man proposed to save the crossbow for our hero until he can afford it, which left the young man shocked. The shopkeeper then explained that the quack will certainly be able to quickly afford it, judging by the ring and the necklace. His kind sense of business made Sun Kang realize why Hojong pointed him to this place, and so he accepted the old man's offer. With it, he purchased some items before making his leave. The next day at the Adventurers Guild, our hero, who was equipped with the Brooch of Vitality that increases one's stamina and ticket choices, knew very well that free work was the best way to earn points, yet in order to earn a living one must seek the board of the Adventurers Guild, despite wanting to get a loan from Hojong. Upon seeing how he only had 5,000 gold, the man in white realized that his friend was in a worse situation than expected. As they were discussing the way back to Earth, our hero affirmed that he might have found a clue, as after 3 years of journeying in this realm, the mysterious entity that brought the Earthling here had finally spoken to the healer. The quack even speculated that putting his hands on the required item might allow him to strike a conversation. As Hojong decided to regain his 5,000 gold upon seeing how not thankful enough the hero was, the healer had no choice but to work in order to earn funds. He then made his way into the crowd to the healer's section of the board in order to see if any quest was worth his time. But just then the lady noticed him, and shyly required his attention, explaining that only those recognized by the guild were allowed to take the board's paper. So the doctor explained that he was only looking through them. The lady then noticed that all of these quests hadn't been ended yet, when suddenly one job seemed to have caught Sun Kang's attention, as he had stumbled upon an urgent demand for healers for a leg that wouldn't stop leaking blood. Later that same day, Julia was shocked to see the healer return to the inn, so he explains that he was searching for a particular individual. And so Sun Kang found the room in question, and was shocked to see a priest healer in it. How priests don't usually take the jobs from the guild board, the quack quickly assumed that the old man must be a traveling priest. The girl then urged the priest to help her friend Rina, and so he asked her to unveil the wound. Dr. Kang used this opportunity to use his observation skill. That revealed that the constantly bleeding wound was made and infected by a sharp item, along with the presence of a bite mark, which intrigued the doctor. But just as the priest was about to cast his healing spell, the protagonist suddenly stopped the intervention, leaving the old man quite intrigued and demanding the young one's name. Our hero introduced himself as a healer and stated that healing skills were useless in this case. This displeased the old man, as he assumed that the young healer was underestimating his capabilities. But just as the hero tried to explain that this wasn't the case, the blonde one suddenly interrupted him, pointing out Rina's atrocious state, and ordered him to exit the room if he will just keep claiming such senseless things. A chill then ran down the girl's spine as Dr. Kang affirmed once again that magic would be useless, and so she pushed him out of the room, pointing out how annoying he was, before slamming the door into his face. Like always, no one paid attention to the quest, who only tried to help. As the girl urged the priest to carry on with the healing, Sun Kang knew very well it would definitely bear no results. The old priest was left stunned as he cast divine light once again, yet to no result. The wound was still open and bleeding. Neither him nor the blonde girl could believe it, as blood was still coming out of Rina's leg. The girl assumed that a priest from the Church of Iber could finally cure her friend, yet to no resolve, just like the last one. And just as Lizzie was about to lose hope, Rina spoke to her. Lizzie quickly asked her friend what's bothering her. So Rina explained how the man in white explained how magic couldn't work, and assumed that he might be the one able to help her. Yet Lizzie had her doubts, seeing how fishy the man looked. Upon seeing how cold her companion's hand was as she begged for help, she finally accepted. A loud sound then caught Julia's attention. Lizzie rushed to the lady and asked her about the healer in question as she described him to her. But much to her shock, Julia pointed her to Dr. Kang, who was sitting behind her. Sun Kang asked about the outcome of the healing magic, stating how powerful it felt. Lizzie grew frustrated as she asked the man if he was truly aware of the reason behind her friend's agony, which she confirmed. With that being said, the hero assumed that the red-faced girl was here to ask for his help. Lizzie then revealed that she had heard the healer state that no cure existed for her friend and that all previous healers were just too weak to treat her. And so she bowed down to our hero and begged him for his help. And while thinking of how low it was from her to ask for help after being rude to him, she was left intrigued by the lack of response. Our hero, who was now at the door, was left intrigued, as they had no time to waste seeing how he needed to check up on Rina. This left Lizzie baffled and relieved, as she expected to be met with refusal. The doctor then stated that the wound's cause should have been found before casting the healing spell. To the ashamed traveling priest known as Harith Finn, as the heroic called how he mentioned the uselessness of magic, the priest assumed that he was insinuating that the patient was poisoned. Father Harith then stated that aside from being a skilled healer, he had studied many poisons in order to refine his purifying skills, and had total faith in his knowledge. Before affirming that poison wasn't the case, making Dr. Kang realize that the indirectly bragging priest was like any other healer. But to his shock, the hero explained that he also realized that poison wasn't the case. The ill one introduced herself as Rina upon being asked by our hero. Dr. Kang then decided to take a look at the wound before questioning the girl about how she got it. Rina explained that she got injured last week on her way behind the village by the weak monster known as Rock Mole, so she didn't mind the injury. But as Lizzie affirmed that she got injured as well, the hero asked the girls if they had arrived at the village after being attacked. Serena explained how they had encountered forest goblins in the jungle and fought crocodiles in the Mukia swamp along the way, leaving the priest baffled by their difficult journey. Bafflement was then replaced with intrigue as the heroes cracked a smile upon hearing Lizzie explain that her friend got in right after arriving at the village. With that being said, Sung-Yin Kang asked Rina if she was feeling any pain. This made her notice that her injury wasn't agonizing at all, leaving the priest utterly shocked. He then screamed at the girl for not feeling such a trivial detail. To him, Serena claimed that she was feeling too sick to notice. With that being said, the priest assumed that the injury was in fact imbued with dark magic, the enemy of holy power, which explains his failure to heal her. That the hero affirmed that it wasn't the case, and if that black magic was truly at work, holy power would have plunged the girl in pain, leaving him utterly annoyed. As he summoned up a potion, Dr. Kang affirmed that only one option remained. Before combining the skills spray and absorb in order to project the potion onto the girl. This left the priest surprised, seeing how the liquid was turned into a mist, while Lizzie was left utterly shocked, as the incurable wound suddenly stopped leaking blood. The protagonist then pointed out that handmade dental mint extract was perfect for exterminating insects. The mention of bugs left Rina shocked. The hero then pointed out the presence of bite marks that were previously concealed by the blood, and how the girl must have been exposed to the bugs that reside in the Mukia swamp. This intrigued Rina, as despite not having a first aid kit, she was the only one that got infected. The doctor then turned to Lizzie and asked her about the exact injury spots, making her state that she was hit in her upper part while Rina was injured in the leg. This made the girl realize that Rina's wound was the only one that touched the water. The doctor confirmed, stating that the contamination must have happened in the waters of the swamp. The priest finally understood his error, as the young one explained how healing skills wouldn't work if an alien substance resided in the body of a patient. This made Lizzie assume that her friend was finally cured, yet the hero affirmed that this was only a temporary state, explaining that an insect who can dull the pain must be pretty advanced. As he sliced the girl's leg open, he affirmed that a creature this strong couldn't possibly be killed by his homemade potion. With that being said, a disgusting creature was unveiled. Upon looking at it, the girl was horrified, as the mysterious insect suddenly burst out of her flesh. This left the priest utterly shocked, as our hero affirmed that they needed to slay it at once, as this was the Black Swamp Leech, a monster known to roam the waters. Suddenly, the monster gained in size and knocked the priest away, as our heroes stood there and watched. The monster then ignored all the humans, making Dr. Kang realize that it was trying to flee using the drain, and so he urged everyone to arm themselves as fast as possible. The man then quickly dashed toward the parasite, catching up with it at once, before trying to slice it with his knife. The beast then showed its teeth as it clashed with the doctor. Sung-Yin Kang was blown away by the strength of the monster, seeing how it had been feeding on human blood for almost 7 days. Yet he kept on attacking the insect despite its toughness. Despite knowing how much it feasted, the doctor didn't find it a sufficient reason to explain its abnormal speed. As it dashed to the drain, Lizzie charged at the beast's direction, jumped into the air, grabbed the closet with her hands before slamming it on the monster's head, smashing it at once. The girl affirmed that she would have surely gone after the dark swamp leech, seeing how it almost drove her friend to the grave. But much to her surprise, the monster was still alive and directing its teeth towards her. And so Dr. Kang drop-kicked the monster away from Lizzie, slamming it into the wall. The hero then charged up his knife, before stabbing it in the mouth, thinking of how it was being fueled by the stolen blood, meaning that hitting it a few more times would cause it to finally bleed out. The leech had already lost much of its size during this fight. The panicked animal then began to look around, searching for any exit or any way to flee, before spotting and charging at a nearby window. Just like that, the leech made it to the outside, and this left the doctor alerted, as despite Julia's many warnings to keep the place clean, the window was now broken. The one in white realized that they will surely lose track of the monster if it made it to the village waterway, meaning that they would have done all of this for nothing. With that being said, he broke a bottle in order to absorb the potion and spray some of his homemade insecticide onto the leech. The hero then charged at the weakened monster, before landing a quick blow that left the monster in pain. The observation skill revealed that the beast had lost most of his blood. With that being said, the hero decided to land one final strike. Yet upon striking the monster, he was left shocked, as a metal shard flew right next to his face. He was shocked to see that his blade had been broken, when a light spell was cast upon the beast, leaving it shackled. The priest affirmed that this spell takes time to chant, and that he could only hold the powerful monster for a short time, which left the hero pleased. Despite the additional time, our hero couldn't possibly cut down the monster without a weapon. But just then, a brand new blade was thrown to him by Lizzie, who urged him to kill the monster. After a lot of effort, the leech managed to break its own seal, and so our hero charged at the monster with his brand new knife and delivered the final attack. Just like that, the dark water leech had been cut to pieces. The doctor then confirms to the doubters that the monster was no more. He then asked if anyone wanted to claim the parasite's body, yet upon being met with refusal, the man decided to take it for himself. Later on, Rena was left impressed. She and her friends were surprised to see how well the doctor stitched back her skin. The hero then affirmed that the girl's leg wouldn't be hurt for a while, seeing how he used a magical needle in order to increase her defense. This left Rena deeply thankful for how the man saved her from what she thought was a certain death. Dr. Kang then affirmed that he was only doing what a healer should do. He then urged the priest to make his report on the matter, stating how he should include his failure to heal the girl in it. This left the old man irritated and confused, so Summy and Kang explained that it was a necessary means for him to get the price that he deserves. Later that same day, a failure was reported to the Adventurers Guild, just leaving the receptionist shocked, as the priest confirmed his failure, seeing how Father Harith was of the church's best, and if he chose to, could easily ascend its ranks. Just then, the lady spotted the one in white, and assumed that he was the cause of this failure, as he was known as Sumyeon Kang, Quest Intruder. As Lizzie asked to cancel out, the guild grew worried it might affect their reputation and their funding, yet seeing there was no choice, she had to accept. With that being said, the lady canceled the quest and refunded 50% of the commission fee to Lizzie in the name of the guild. Despite our hero's inability to take official requests, he had the power to accept those abandoned by the guild. His method earned him the complaints of many, pointing out how he didn't have any healing magic. Dr. Kang understood very well their frustration. It affirmed that he only did this because of their pitiful work, and it was his only way to make a living as a quack. Later on, Lizzie handed out the reward from the quest, along with the refund she got from the guild to our hero, who was left thankful, seeing how much he was in need of money. The doctor tried to give the girl back her knife, yet she refused, seeing how he had broken his own. According to Lizzie, this blade was made from blue silver the villagers forged for her upon learning that she was going to be an adventurer. This intrigued our hero, as this blade seemed to have a lot of sentimental value, but the girl affirmed that it was a token of apology for driving him out of the room. Lizzie then pointed out that the most vital thing was Rena's life, and with that, the doctor finally accepted her gift. He then asked the girl to stay safe while affirming that she would get a small discount if she ever asked for his services once again. With that reward, our hero had now saved up 2 million gold, but would need 2 million more in order to afford the weapon and have some extra cash for survival. With that being said, he decided to spend the roulette 5 times, only to be met with utter disappointment, seeing how pathetic the rewards were. And just as he was about to complain about his need for gold, he suddenly found comfort in gaining a new skill named Air that allowed him to make wind potions. The hero was somewhat pleased with this new gain. With that being said, Dr. Kang decided to move on to the next matter as he entered the tent. The one inside had quickly recognized our protagonist. This was LaFay, a herb dealer who stated that the man in white could take whatever he seeks. Her attention was then suddenly caught as the quack explained that he was here to sell, not to purchase. Seeing how interested the herb dealer became, the hero became intrigued, seeing how she was more interested in buying stuff than selling them. With that being said, he presented the slain leech to LaFay. Recognizing this beast as the Black Swamp Leech, the lady asked the man if he had gone to the Muka Swamp, which he somehow confirms. The herb dealer then stated to the man that such a damaged monster couldn't be sold for a high price. Then suddenly, something had caught her eyes. Summy and Kang then asked about the monster's worth, speculating that it wouldn't be much. To his shock, LaFay proposed to buy it off for 3 million gold. Yet after recalling the girl's words, the quack assumed that she had a kink for such creatures, which she denies, explaining that this monster was a variant of the Black Swamp Leech, seeing how its teeth were white instead of the usual black. According to her, variants were anomalies among monsters being usually more powerful and more resourceful than their normal counterparts. This made Dr. Kang assume this made variants on par with the rare monsters, yet the lady explained that this wasn't the case. Seeing how only the relic had worth after slaying a rare monster, yet the corpse of a variant could be used to create a relic class item. She then pointed out that variants are very precious, seeing how they were too rare to find and study, making the healer state how eager she must have been to get one. That being said, the protagonist decided to sell the leech. Just like that, the 2 white coats sealed the deal. Later that same night, our hero barged into the weapon shop, confidently walked to the old man and threw a bag full of money in front of him and asked for the 14 million gold crossbow. And while the shopkeeper was once left stunned by the man's quick raise of funds, our hero asked him if it was still available, which he confirmed, with that the weapon had been handed over to its new owner. With the crossbow now in his hands, Sung Kang was happy to finally acquire the item requested by the system itself, expecting the entity to appear. But to his surprise, nothing happened once again. Neither that same night at the inn. Seeing how acquiring the crossbow wasn't enough, he decided to transfer it into his inventory. He was then left shocked as the system spoke to him once again. Suddenly, a system window appeared right in front of him. The doctor couldn't believe it. As the system window began to glitch, the hero speculated that the glitched message had appeared due to him getting the crossbow, yet he couldn't fully read it, and notify the entity about a glitch in the system. The healer grew frustrated, seeing how he did everything he could to get its desired weapon. And so he commanded the entity to reveal itself and stop stalking him, as he just wanted to have a conversation with it. When suddenly a new system window had appeared. Seeing the black star made the healer realize that the entity was using it as its own mark. With that being said, it decided to respond, claiming that it will answer 5 questions asked by Sung Kang. On the day it all began, many Earthlings were killed while others had survived. Those survivors began to argue whether they should settle in this new world or seek a way back to Earth. And so one of them proposed to use their skills in order to make a living in this world, and that they should each go in their different separate way and seek a way back home if their heart desires it, yet all of this occurred 3 years ago. Back to the present, the hero began to think carefully, as these questions could reveal a way to return back to Earth. He then decided to choose his words wisely, seeing how the messages were getting shorter, meaning that their communication must be something forbidden. With that being said, Dr. Kang asked the entity if it was the one that teleported them here. His theory was confirmed as the one behind this system affirmed it. The system then replied with a simple yes as our hero asked it about its identity and its goal. This left the hero disappointed, as only confirmation or denial were the available options. Based on the hero's question, the entity affirmed that a way back to the homeworld existed, yet none had managed to take it. This surprised our hero, as it made him realize that even the one rumored to have a black star skill couldn't return to Earth. And so he pulled out a notebook in order to get as much intel as possible, stating how the entity must have a purpose taking them from their homes, thinking of how no one must have been able to achieve it for him. With that being said, Dr. Kang asked the entity what it seeks from him and his kin. Seeing how the status window had 4 main purposes, the hero wrote down a first option regarding points and items, and the second one regarding skills and power. Sung Kang then asked the system to answer yes for the first option, decline for the second, or keep silent for 5 minutes if the goal is something else. The protagonist was shocked upon seeing that the system wanted them to either gain points or skills. For the 5th question, the hero decided to replay the same game, which made the entity behind the system reveal that points were the most crucial. With that being said, Dr. Kang let out his sigh as he finally understood all. Anger began to fill his veins after understanding that he was abducted from his home in order to earn the entity points. Yet the protagonist decided to let go of his anger and focus, thinking of how he must be the most adequate one to fulfill their mission, seeing how he was the Earthling with the most knowledge. And despite not caring about the entity's goal, he wanted to know its identity, seeing how it could help his family regain their world. The hero, who knew very well that he had spent his 5 questions, asked the entity if it was a deity from this continent, stating that it was for its own good to answer, and that he would only agree to help it if it demonstrated some honesty. Yet to his surprise, the system suddenly deducted 52 points from him. The system kept on taking and taking until nothing was left. Our hero was left utterly baffled, and promised himself in a burst of fury to track down and slay the entity. When suddenly, a 5,000-point quest appeared with a black star prize to Sung Kang's intrigue. The quack had never come across such a quest that granted a black star skill, and after seeing how it took all of his points and granted him a mission, he quickly realized that points were necessary to control the system. Seeing how it also asked him not to rush the mission, he deduced that conversing with it would be temporarily impossible. With that, Dr. Kang decided to obey the system once again in exchange for a decent reward. A lot of insulting names roamed in our hero's mind when thinking about the entity, but seeing how it was the one controlling the system, he decided to title it Manager. The next day, as the first rays of dawn graced the earth, our hero quietly enjoyed his meal inside the inn. Dr. Kang was exhausted while eating a smelly sandwich. He was pleased with the skill Freya's crossbow yesterday that allowed him to make a weapon that he can only use up here and disappear, and even turn it into a bracelet. The healer decided to test out the skill they got from getting the crossbow out with the use of his skills later on. The hero was then left shocked as the system placed Freya roulette in his status window and granted him free spins that normally cost 50 points each. With that being said, the young man decided to use his free trials. As the roulette had reached the end of its spin, he noticed that the rewards resulted in a boost in damage while acquiring him the skill Freya Connection Pouch along with a soul crystal that increases points. The protagonist was happy to see that the rewards didn't include gold but stats and skills, despite that being exclusive to the weapon. He was also pleased by the point boost granted by the crystal, and hoped to encounter such fortune all the way across his journey. Just then, an exhausted Hojong made his entrance. Our hero was happy to see his friend finally arrive. Sung Kang then asked the intrigued Hojong to follow him as they had trivial matters to discuss. A loud scream was heard from the inn. Hojong had a hard time believing that they were kidnapped to earn some entity points, yet our hero confirmed the crazy story. and despite seeing how they were being treated as pawns, he couldn't help but shed some happy tears as a way to go back to Earth truly existed, while our hero tried to calm him down. Sun Kang affirmed to his friend that he would now have to work really hard in order to get the necessary points, as he pointed out how difficult it must be for our hero. Our hero confirmed that the situation was very challenging and wounds that one inflicted on himself or that he inflicted on others couldn't be treated for points, as only healing allies mattered. Hojang was left intrigued, as the quack put it simply by stating that points can be earned upon healing teammates. With that being said, the protagonist asked his friend for help. Our hero was in desperate need of temporary allies that are most likely Earthlings as well and know about the system. And among all Earthlings, Hojang was the most trustworthy. The man then began to think for a while, before affirming to his friend that he would surely help him. This cheerful reaction was no surprise for the healer. Confusion was then installed as Hojang affirmed that he would harm himself for the sake of our hero. Just like that, the man stabbed his own hand, and urged the doctor to patch his wound in order to obtain his points. Dr. Kang then reminded his friend that healing wounds caused by the injured himself was completely pointless. The party had no other choice but to go monster hunting, which used Hojang's skills, seeing how they were so early at it. Our hero affirmed that it was to get the best quest available. The guild girl tried to welcome the arriving adventurers, yet was left shocked, speculating that Dr. Kang had arrived with a smile looking to steal others' missions. This weird expression confused Hojang, who demanded an explanation from Sun Kang, who stated that it was a long tale to tell. As they began browsing the quest board for any good job, something caught our hero's attention. The protagonist noticed that many jobs were related to Mount Belrado, so Hojang explained how it was rumored to have gained an abnormal number of monsters. The guild girl suddenly appeared behind them and explained that monsters become many in the Belrado mountain range in this season, and how adventurers were free to use the camp of the Adventurers Guild in case they wanted to take some of the extermination quests that it placed. This made the healer realize that many injured adventurers would be present at the camp in need of healing, earning him points, and so he accepted the request. The guild girl was particularly happy to see him finally behave like a normal adventurer. Just like that, Sun Kang and Hojang took on the job. Our heroes were then welcomed to the halfway camp of the Adventurers Guild by a young man named Varcello. The man then explained that the camps handed out rewards to adventurers based on their number of kills, and that despite the west roads being safe, the nearby areas were filled with beasts, which is why he urged them to not go unprepared. As the doctor waited for his patients, his friend decided to do some farming. The ground then began to shake before a pack of iron moles emerged from underneath. As he pulled out his crossbow, the hero pointed out how they stumbled upon monsters right after exiting the camp, then used the rock arrow crafted from his inventory in order to take out the wild beasts. This left the quack quite pleased, seeing how this weapon did surprisingly good damage and did need to be manually reloaded. When suddenly an iron mole emerged from underground, Hojang tried to warn the healer, and just as the quack was about to be slashed by the claw, Hojang intervened at the last second in order to tank the hit for his friend. He then urged the concerned one to keep on fighting. With that, the hero used his crossbow in order to turn a small half potion into ammo and shoot Hojang Kim in the back. This left the man amazed as he was attacked by the one that he just saved, yet Dr. Kang affirmed that he was just experimenting, which left him even more annoyed. With that, the fight kept going on and on, with Sun Kang shooting and Hojang slashing. In the end, an impressive pile of corpses was made. This left the man amazed upon seeing how many steel moles had been slain, which shocked the healer as it explained why his friend had such a hard time. With that being said, the man began to calculate the hero's reward. The crowd began whispering about how they were extraordinary and mysterious adventurers who caught numerous steel moles. But just then, Hojang's good mood was ruined as someone pointed out how they were too poor to afford a true healer based on their injuries. Later at dinner, the man expressed his anger, stating how outrageous it was to see how ignorant people were of his friend's talents. Seeing how calm he was, he asked the doctor if he wasn't offended. The protagonist explained that he didn't want to waste his time on the likes of those. He was also pretty focused as the time drew near. This left Hojang Kim confused, but suddenly it happened. As the adventurers began to screen for a healer, our hero realized that his true clients had finally arrived. Many injured adventurers returned to the camp at nighttime demanding healers. This pleased Hojang as it made him speculate that Sun Kang would finally have a chance to farm points, yet he affirmed that those weren't his clients. And just as the confused man was about to demand an explanation, a horrifying scream was suddenly heard. The hero affirmed that his patients were somewhere else. The man was then left intrigued as a mysterious figure asked to check up on the one in agony, and while he recognized the protagonist, Hojang recognized the man as the one who mocked Dr. Kang for having no magic. The healer affirmed to the quack that he was talented enough to help the patient by himself, yet our hero had his doubts seeing the state of the patient. Our hero then deduced that the adventurer was harmed in the arm and shoulder and that the healing was meaningless. And so he used his observation skill, which revealed that the arm suffered from a paralyzing decay upon being bit by an animal, and that the healer had already stopped the bleeding. Hojang asked Sun Kang if he found the source of the problem. According to the doctor, the patient was attacked by a wild animal, and based on the condition of his arm, he also had paralysis. This made the man quickly realize that the culprit must be a mountain dog, while the other healer didn't believe it, saying how paralysis poison wasn't painful. Dr. Kang then explained that the Belrado mountain dog had a unique type of venom, as he opened the patient's arm, explaining that sometimes it could also make the flesh decay, as the arm of the man turned out to be rotten inside, leaving everyone shocked. With that being said, Hojong asked for a solution, so our hero stood up, summoned his weapon, and pointed it at the injured man, to everyone's shock as they tried to stop him. With that being said, the doctor asked his ally to control the crowd, which he immediately did. The doctor judged that the crossbow was the best way to inject the potion into the man's body, and so he used his skill, air, to craft a potion that he placed in his connection pouch in order to create a wind potion arrow. All watched in horror as the hero shot 5 arrows at the injured man, assuming that he just ended his life. This left our hero intrigued, as the wind potion began to take effect, giving the adventurer a very much alive appearance. All were left stunned to see the young man healed after having been penetrated by arrows. Dr. Kang also explained that he had also purified the body from the venom, and that the mountain dogs were weak against air properties. The poison shared the same weakness as well, which meant that the poison had been cancelled out naturally, though the bleeding kept going. With that, Hojong realized that the healer was the one to blame, seeing how he had sealed the wound. Dr. Kang then pointed out that this would have never happened if the healer had just analyzed the wound before healing it. With that, the young healer grew ashamed of himself, as the one in white gave him a dark, mocking gaze. The healer then ran away, embarrassed, seeing how the crowd agreed with the doctor. After applying the bandage, the hero explained to the thankful young man that he should rest his arm for at least a day. Hojong then pointed out how all this situation seemed, and how the wounded adventurer should have been with his party. The healer agreed, seeing how hunting alone at night was impossible. With that, the protagonist asked the man about his teammates, so he explained how they got separated after being the victims of a surprise attack. The young man then began to shake in fear as he realized that he was the only one that managed to return and began regretting the separation. Our heroes were then left shocked as he explained how he and his allies were attacked by tens of Belrado mountain dogs. Hojong explained that a pack shouldn't normally be made with such a high number. This made Sun Yum Kang think, before finally realizing that a rare monster who imprisoned the adventurers in a dungeon had made its appearance. Later that same night, as our heroes made their way into the forest, Hojong speculated that all had been slain, but Sun Yum Kang asked him to keep his hopes up, when suddenly a sound was heard. The hero urged his friend to use the lamp as mysterious cursing was heard out of nowhere. With that being said, Hojong quickly redirected the light, revealing an adventurer getting jumped by multiple mountain dogs. With that being said, the hero crafted his wind potion arrows and struck down the wild beasts. Dr. Kang then went to check on the adventurer, who was left thankful. But just then, Hojong found a rather disturbing pile of corpses, and while he was left horrified by the scene, the healer concluded that all of them had been caught in the rare monster's area control. He then noticed that the pile contained old and new human and bestial corpses. This confused Hojong, as mountain dogs were fond of fresh prey, so they had no apparent reason to stack corpses as such. Just then, the hero felt alerted as he finally realized the reality of the situation, as mountain dogs that feasted on rotten flesh existed. As the rare monster known as decaying Belrado mountain dog made his appearance, the hero affirmed that the zombies enjoyed this type of meat. The undead, whether in corpses reanimated by black magic and who are greatly hated by priests. Our hero pointed out how tough the situation seemed to be, while his friend doubted their ability to achieve victory on their own. The undead monster gathered his power and let out a fearsome howl, causing his hounds to attack, leaving the adventurers filled with fear. Hojong intervened at the last moment and saved the young one by slashing the attacking mountain dogs. But to his misfortune, the one he had missed was about to take him from the side. The doctor urged his friend to duck as he loaded the crossbow with a wind potion arrow, before firing it at the hound. And just as the man felt thankful to his friend, he found himself getting bombarded with painful wind potion arrows. As our hero explained that this was a vaccine against the poison, the man felt annoyed, demanding to be informed before getting hit as such, as the fight kept going on. Hojong, who just got bit, pointed out how annoying the numbers of the mountain dogs were. Yet to the hero's surprise, the potion began to take effect. And while Hojong was overjoyed by the effect of the wind potion arrow, his friend was wary on the other hand, seeing how the rare monster stood immobile after launching the attack. And just as Hojong killed the last hound, the hero realized that it was the undead monster's plan all along. Dr. Kang was then left shocked upon witnessing the rare monster use necromancy to bring them back from the dead. Neither he nor his friend were able to believe that the dog was a necromancer. As Hojong speculated that they wouldn't last, the hero explained that they only needed to kill the rare monster, and yet the numbers were annoying. Sun Yum Kang was particularly annoyed by the fact that he couldn't get a clean shot at the monster. Hojong then asked him if closing the distance would assure the kill, which the doctor confirmed. With that being said, the man decided to take action. This made Dr. Kang remember that his friend wasn't a mage, but possessed the class group aggro that played as tanks and lured the monsters to himself. Hojong then pointed out that his skill enhances the monster's powers, and so as he played the distraction by running for his life, the man placed all his hopes in his friend. The hero took a brief moment to appreciate Hojong's sacrifice. His task was now easy as he only had to slay one undead. He then remembered how the herb dealer stated that a rare monster's power came from an item, and that in order to defeat a powerful rare monster, one only had to locate and destroy the said relic. Sun Yun Kang then charged at the monster while using his observational eye that allowed him to locate the item in question. The hero then used the skill throw to slice the monster's neck, seeing how the item was in its mouth. He then pulled out his crossbow, and just as he struck the monster with a wind potion arrow, a mountain dog came out of nowhere and bit off his firing arm. Dr. Kang realized that the original body had been concealed, as his hand had been bitten off. The crossbow then fell to the ground. The giant hound, who was angry at our hero for aiming for his relic, charged at him from behind. The hero then turned around, only to find the giant monster trying to consume him. With that being said, he used the system in order to make the crossbow disappear, before summoning it back to his left hand. The undead felt alerted as the hero got a clean shot to its head. This marked our hero's victory as the dungeon began to dissipate. He then used this stench in order to stop his bleeding while searching for his missing limb, and was happy to see that the boy had picked it up and wrapped it in a cloth. Dr. Kang felt thankful that the boy affirmed that he should be the grateful one before stating that he will restore the hero's hand for him. The young man presented himself as Cadel as our hero guessed that he was of the same profession as him. The quack declined the offer, seeing how he could take care of himself before asking the healer to handle the rest. It turned out that some people were still alive and begging for rescue among the pile of corpses. This is when the hero then began to look for his friend, only to find him under a pile of dead hounds asking for help. After getting up, Hojong affirmed that he thought that he was going to meet his end, yet they were still both miraculously not dead. He then called out his friend for having his head chopped off, yet our hero affirmed that it was no big deal. Dr. Kang then proposed to regain the camp in order to attend to their injuries while his friend asked him about a solution to get rid of the bodies. So the protagonist affirmed that he will resort to the Church of Iber. Back at the base camp, the hero properly placed his torn-off hand, before reattaching it using the needle in his mouth despite it not being perfect. The trick was to use the left hand so quickly finish off the work. Just like that, our hero had regained his right hand, while the tank was amazed. Hojong then asked Sun Yun Kang why he didn't accept the healer's offer, so our hero revealed that he despised working with other healers. The quack was then notified that those of the church had arrived, and so he went to greet them while his friends went directly to bed. The emissary of the church introduced himself as Cardinal Asholo from the Grind Village Church. As he thought of how the man's appearance immediately gave him up as a priest, our hero introduced himself back. All others were left shocked, as this was Sun Yun Kang, someone that they feared. Cardinal Asholo ordered them to keep silence, before stating that Father Harith, who was one of the most competent priests that he knew, had told them about him. The blonde priest then grew annoyed as our hero cheerfully asked about the old man. With that being said, he asked to be brought to the undead corpses. Varcello was about to puke, as neither the sight nor smell were pleasant. Cardinal Asholo pointed out how sad it was for this to occur in such a gorgeous sight. He then asked him to purify the area from the dark magic, Team 2 to scout the perimeter, and Team 3 to transport the bodies to the camp, before tasking Team 4 with setting fire to the corrupted corpses. Just like that, holy flame had been cast. As the boy pointed out how beautiful the scale was, our hero explained that killed undead should be burned, seeing how they could rise back from the dead again. Just then, someone demanded the healer's attention. The blonde priest asked to inspect the rare monster's dead body, which our hero had no problem with. After our hero presented the monster to the priest, Cardinal Asholo expressed his disgust, making the hero realize that he was repulsed by the smell and the dark magic. The hero then grew intrigued as the blonde man asked for the corpse. The priest explained that the church needed it in order to discover the reason behind its reanimation, and that they were ready to pay for it. Our hero then grew intrigued by the treasure's value, as it was the holy water of dawn, which left Varcello extremely amazed. The man then explained that pure water needed a year of the most honest prayers after being placed on an altar at dawn, and that its holy power could be felt even when contained, and that it could purify numerous undead with just one bottle. According to Varcello, this wasn't an offer that could be missed. First, our hero thought that he would be deprived of reward after destroying the relic, but now he had the chance to accept the offer and earn himself holy water, which he did. Cardinal Asholo then thanked the man in the name of his church for finding the corrupted animal and slaying it alone. All priests bowed as a token of thankfulness, and while the hero humbly accepted the praise, the priests speculated that he only did it for money. So Dr. Kang affirmed that he was a healer just like them who couldn't stand corrupted zombies. The next day, at the first light of dawn, someone screamed our hero's name. Sun Yun Kang was woken up angry. The exhausted one then demanded Varcello a reason for interrupting his sleep. So the young man revealed that the branch manager of the Adventurers Guild had arrived, which left our hero utterly confused. Later on, Ruin Hersher affirmed that he felt pride in our hero upon learning that he had slain an undead hound. Dr. Kang pretended to be honored by the laughing man's presence, but in reality he found him pathetic, as he was a talentless, greedy man who only relied on his family's name with a bad reputation within the guild, making it impossible for his presence to be due to pride. meaning that he must have an ulterior motive. The branch manager then decided to express his thankfulness to our hero for protecting the Hind village by offering him a gold vitality mushroom extract that he asked Varcello to define, seeing how amazed he seemed upon seeing it. The young man then explained that vitality mushrooms were used to make stamina potions, with the golden one being the hardest to find, seeing how it could increase one's pool stamina's width, which piqued our hero's interest. And so he quickly drank it, pushing his stamina limit by a small amount, and after pretending to be thankful, the hero suddenly slammed the empty bottle into the ground just as the branch manager believed him. Sun Yun Kang affirmed that praising him must not be the primary reason behind his presence, and seeing how exhausted he was, the hero directly pointed out how the man was after the holy water. The man was happy with this straightforwardness, stating that such an item couldn't simply be bought, which is why he wanted to make a deal with the Outworlder. This left our hero utterly shocked, seeing how the greedy man was aware of him being from another dimension. Ruin Hersher confirmed once again that our hero wasn't from this world. Our hero calmed down Dr. Kang, seeing how the greedy one knew about them and wondered how vast his knowledge truly was. The branch manager then stated how sad it was that powerful Outworlders couldn't climb the ranks even after proving themselves due to their mysterious past, pointing out how an excellent healer couldn't become official due to these circumstances, and Sir Sun Yun Kang asked the man to cut straight to the chase. To that, the man proposed to give him his family's blessing along with the healer badge in exchange for the Ibert Church had given him. The hero doubted this offer due to the policy, so the branch manager reminded him that he was above such things. According to the greedy one, our hero could even become a court healer, seeing how much his career could benefit from his family blessing, which intrigued him. The man affirmed that this was the price of holy water. In reality, the man wanted to put his hands on the secret item, seeing how it would allow him to leave the village for a bigger and better place. And just as he began to think of how easily he could grant Dr. Kang a healer's badge, our hero made his decision and decided to decline the offer. The man's utter disbelief. This made him grow anxious as the hero confirmed his decline. The healer explained that he was already satisfied with his healer career and that the man was pitiful for trying to bribe him. With that, the annoyed Rowan Hersher proposed to offer him the precious sponsorship of his family. Barcelo was even left shocked as the quack pointed out how the branch manager wasn't respected by his family, which is why he had no choice but to decline the offer. This was the last straw for Rowan Hersher. With that being said, the angry man lashed out at the hero as Varcello tried to calm him down. Later on, Hojong was left amazed, seeing how he got a random reward out of the blue, making our hero curious about the nature of this prize. The tank had put his hand on a bloodthirsty bloodstone that increases his firepower. But in reality, this was Dr. Kang's doing, seeing how he was the one that made the branch manager form a reward for him. The protagonist affirmed to his friend that this was a decent reward, which left the man intrigued. When suddenly the alarm was sounded, signaling a monster wave from the east, south, and north, making the guild urge the adventurers to aid them. All hunters were looking forward to this event and decided to intercept the waves here in order to keep the village safe. With that being said, our heroes decided to join them. Just like that began a grand battle between monsters and humans. A hound was suddenly taken down by our hero's rock arrow. Hojong then used an item to activate the skill Vampiric Craving, which increases attack power for a short time, making him point out how easy the waves are compared to the undead mountain dogs. Just then, our hero felt alerted as a giant beast / an adventurer from the back. A boss monster had appeared. The adventurers were determined to slay it, as it was the only enemy remaining, yet this task was of no ease. Seeing how to penetrate the boss monster, the tank pointed out how useless rock arrows were, yet our hero wasn't out of solutions. That being said, the man charged up the steel mole claw arrow and fired it at the monster's neck, leaving it in great pain as it let out an agonized scream. Seeing how the arrow penetrated the defense, our hero ordered everyone to target the wound, and Hojong, who widened the wound, gave the signal to Sun Yun Kang. With that, the hero launched himself into the air above the bear and struck him with his knife using his star skill. With that, the monster suffered a critical hit and then pushed its last roar before falling to the ground, marking the victory of the adventurers. Later on, the hunters began to gossip about Hojong and Sun Yun Kang's feats during the battles. The tank was then overwhelmed by a sense of pride, seeing how well people talked about them, before noticing his friend who wanted to use his 300 points to play roulette. The man even bet money that none of the rewards would be satisfying, yet our hero couldn't help but have his hopes up. Upon receiving pitiful prizes, the hero couldn't help but feel disappointed. Southern Versailles will try to catch on to our heroes, which should have them intrigued, so the young man pointed out how they had prevented a great catastrophe today before thanking them, and one asked if the camp is going to be closed. Varcello affirmed that it was only a temporary measure until the church finished investigating. Our heroes, and Hojong in particular, were presently surprised to see that they were offered one free raspberry made as a thank you gift. The two of them then pleasantly enjoyed the free drink. Hojong expressed that this was exactly what he was craving, while Sun Yun Kang pointed out how surprised he was by this kind of reward. Our hero then revealed to his friend how all camp workers were from the village, making his friend point out how they would normally be from outside. Just then, a figure noticed the doctor upon entering the pub. Our hero also seemed to have recognized the incoming figure. Just like that, the protagonist was reunited with his old patient, Loose Ticker. The confused tank asked if they were acquainted, so our hero revealed that he was once a patient of his, as the man pointed out how thankful he still was. Staker took this opportunity to repay the doctor for his services, which was an old tab that slipped our hero's mind. Just then, he remembered, and handed the man back his weapon. Upon seeing how overjoyed the man was to be reunited with his sword, Hojang couldn't help but see him as a weird guy. Shortly after, they began to discuss our hero's latest adventure, so Staker asked them if they were relaxing after the quest, which they confirmed, and so he handed them a party application form to their intrigue. The swordsman revealed a dungeon entrance appeared near the village, and that's the party that he is putting up for his cousin. We raid in 3 days. Staker affirmed that he couldn't participate due to his debt, making the tank point out how unwise it always was to take out a loan from the guild. Dr. Kang, who was intrigued by the dungeon treasures, asked Hojang if he wished to go, which he confirmed. The young man felt overjoyed and thankful, seeing how he had recruited someone trustworthy. But just then, he remembered that our protagonist relished seeing those who mocked him begging for his help, which made him doubt his excitement. On the day of the raid, both our heroes stood ready. The healer affirmed that he was prepared to receive his money, which left the tank intrigued. But just then, he remembered the bet that they made back then on the roulette, making him realize that the quack got a decent prize, which was the skill Freya arrow retrieval that lets him spawn one of his used arrows back in his inventory after the dawn of the next day. The quack explained how he met the healer that they saved a day earlier and how he had faith in Nakamate and how it blessed him. Hojang couldn't believe it, as this increased Sumyan Kang's luck and allowed him to unlock a brand new skill. And with that, they went on their way. Later at the Hakat Hills, our heroes were greeted by Taker's cousin, the sword maiden Tina Putine. Our hero presented himself as a healer and his washed-up friend as a tank before asking the girl to pay his gloomy expression no mind. The other party members were Fight Lacrimati, the mage Shirai, and the priestess Sakita. The sorceress then turned to the tank, pointing out his weird robe. So Hojang affirmed that it was a rare item. Just then, the rogue named Isle asked the party to behave well, seeing how the healer and the tank were here to help. This mature attitude made Hojang speculate that the rogue was the leader, but the grumpy fighter affirmed that he was in charge. And so, with everyone being prepared, the party entered the dungeon. After opening his eyes, our hero found himself in a relic dungeon along with his allies. The sorceress cast a light spell. With that, the adventurers made their way into the dungeon. The quack observed that the walls seemed to be decaying, which could only happen under the influence of water or air. The hero examined the rocks and found that it was neither wet nor influenced by air, seeing how far they were inside the dungeon. This made him theorize that the decaying was due to dark magic. He then recalled how the fighter claimed to have the ability to heal, and as the tank speculated that he was a therapist, the boy affirmed that he was a monk. Our hero then realized that the priestess didn't pick up any sign of dark magic, when suddenly something caught his attention as a swarm of scarabs appeared from the walls. The disgusted mage quickly launched a powerful explosive spell on the insects, while the swordsman and the tank began to fight the swarms with their blades, yet more and more kept coming, leaving the adventurers disgusted. The monk then noticed one charging at him head-on. He and the priestess found themselves being overwhelmed. Seeing how many they were, Isle proposed they just make their way through the scarabs. Our hero asked the sorceress if she had any wind spells, which she confirmed, and Sir Sumyan Kang broke the potion bottle in order to use spray. As he created a list of enrollment, he asked the girl to disperse it, and so a heavy gale was cast, leading to a enrollment breeze to fill up the dungeon. With that, all insects had fallen. As the party leader was astonished by the feat of the healer and the mage, the sorceress tried to make the quack tell her about his mysterious spell, yet he refused. The rogue then praised the party on their good work and suggested that they all drink a bottle before progressing even further. And while the others were thankful, Sumyan Kang was intrigued by the large mana potions. He pointed out how expensive these bottles must be and how sharing them might not be a good idea, yet Isle said that the pharmacist he knew gave him a good price. As he took the bottle, Dr. Kang couldn't help but be moved by the rogue's kindness. Yet despite that, this situation couldn't help but give him an impression of déjà vu. After some time walking, the tank noticed something. The path of the party had split into multiple roads. Suddenly, the priestess and the monk felt on their guard, and when asked about this reaction, the girl explained that powerful dark magic was creeping out from the left path. And while the rogue wanted to give it some thought, the party leader affirmed that they should just go right, yet someone opposed his decision. The protagonist affirmed that they should go towards the powerful dark magic, upon stating that they should go left. The hero was scolded by the fighter, who reminded him of the ominous dark magic, yet the quack affirmed that he was well aware of it. This greatly angered the monk, who grabbed Dr. Kang by the collar and screamed at him for choosing such a suicidal path, calling him a madman. The tank and the swordsman tried to calm him down, yet the party leader affirmed that his opinion was meaningless as he wasn't sensible to black magic. Tina Putane felt particularly insulted as the young man expressed his regrets for teaming up with someone introduced to him by a nudie. Neither the priestess nor the sorceress that had faith in her wanted to go towards the dark magic. With that being said, the monk stated that if our hero really wanted to go left, he was free to do it alone as he pushed him away. With that, the party leader along with the mage and the priestess went right. The doctor, who affirmed that he was unharmed, asked his patient's cousin if she didn't wish to go right with the rest. Tenaputayan explained that the healer must know something, seeing how it was her cousin that introduced them. The protagonist was pleased to see someone having faith in him. He then turned to the rogue who stayed by his side. Isle explained that he wanted to put his faith into the quack hero. Later, as the rest of the party made its way into the right path, they noticed an absence of monster activity. And while the monk was questioning the doctor's judgment, the sorceress understood Tina's faith in him, yet couldn't comprehend the actions of the rogue, when suddenly a weird sound attracted the party's attention. The three young adventurers found themselves standing in the middle of an ominous circle. The girl urged her allies to escape as it was a trap. She and the party leader managed to escape the spikes coming from the ground. Yet the priestess, on the other hand, screamed in agony as her leg got impaled. With that, Sakita had fallen, leaving her friends worried. The monk tried to use a healing skill, but to no use. Both of them watched in horror as her pain began to increase. The monk then pointed out how she was under the effect of a curse that only a priest could vanquish. Just then, the white coat arrived, reminding the younglings of his words, recalling how he told them to go left. The party leader was shocked to see the quack arrive all of a sudden. The baffled one then demanded an explanation, so Sun Yan Kang explained how he waited after predicting this outcome. Tina then pointed out how this was a recently unlocked sealing magic circle. The monk, who was confused by the hero's knowledge, realized that the dark magic was activated due to the holy power, theorizing that this was a trap for priests. The young man demanded to know how the quack predicted this outcome. Yes, he affirmed that it was of little importance now. He then angrily ordered the healer to help Sakita, seeing how he had predicted the occurrence of such injuries, yet he refused. The monk grew angry, by the second, as Dr. Kang pointed out that this was their fault for disregarding his advice. But just then, he turned to his friend, who was in atrocious pain, and so he had no choice but to admit his wrong, and get on his knee in order to ask the healer for help. Sun Yan Kang was more than pleased with this humbled cry for help. As our hero began to treat the wounds, the tank asked him about the curse. Seeing how they had no holy power to counter it, the quack affirmed that skills were used. This was how they had holy water in their possession. Seeing how powerful this blessed liquid was even when sealed inside a bottle, the quack speculated that a single drop should be enough to help the girl. As the holy water began to take effect, the rest of the party were wondering if the quack could really help out their friend. The sorceress was surprised to see the rogue point out how he couldn't help her, seeing how he almost had no holy power and was dealing with a powerful curse, making the monk fear the worst. Just then, the protagonist arrived. All were left shocked upon seeing Sakita alive, healed, and well on the tank's back. All were impressed by this achievement, as the party leader apologized for rudely underestimating our hero, while the rogue observed in silence. There on in the left path, the party stopped walking, as they had stumbled upon the entrance of the boss's domain. Hojong then stated how suspicious it was, seeing how there were no enemies, which made the dungeon merely really challenging. So the girl reminded him of Sakita. As our hero reached for the door, he asked his allies to stay on their guard. Just as the door was opened, a great demon welcomed his sacrifices. Upon opening the door, a great dark aura overwhelmed our heroes. Both the monk and the quack were left shocked, as the embossing boss monster of the ruins of an unknown level stood in front of them. The adventurers were overwhelmed by the immense dark power, and despite their huge doubt in victory, they decided to take him head-on. The demon then called them out for this stupidity, for entering his domain, and then they should be honored as their lonely lives would be sacrificed for his. Yeah, just as he was about to give his name, the demon was suddenly shot by surprise. The adventurers couldn't believe it. As the evil being began to fade away, he was unable to comprehend the situation. It also couldn't understand how it got defeated so easily. Just like that, the dungeon boss was taken down. The culprit was no other than our hero, who used his crossbow to fire a holy water of dawn arrow at the monster. The others were unable to believe it, as this sudden victory didn't seem to make sense. Hojong Kim scolded Sun Yan Kang for using his strongest move at the start of the fight, affirming that it was more logical in using it at the end. He then used the Freya arrow retrieval skill to take back the powerful projectile that took down the demon. Dr. Kang then reminded the party leader how the dungeon would soon fade away as its boss had been slain. The sorceress asked if she should draw the exit right away, but the rogue explained that they should scavenge the room first, seeing how they still had some time, and how keeping the exit open takes a lot of mana, ultimately convincing the mage. The party leader then reminded his crew that they were on the clock, and whoever discovers an item gets to own it. The sorceress then noticed something odd, as a large stain of blood covered the altar, making her point out that the demon must have slain countless lives on it, while Hojong Kim urged her to take whatever is precious to replace the altar. Our hero speculated that an item must be hidden under the altar, and was shocked to find a box. But just as he opened it, someone pushed out a loud scream. This left the healer shocked, as a pack of undead emerged from the dark circles. The party stood prepared for battle, as the monk condensed his mana and attacked the zombies with the skill Holy Fist. The young man was then left annoyed as the tank praised him for his fighting skills and called him a physical therapist. According to the sorcerers, victory wasn't rich even when facing the zombies by destroying their heads, before unleashing powerful spells targeting multiple enemies at once. Meanwhile, our hero was taking the zombies down with his rock arrows, thinking of how odd it is to see the undead attack them even after the death of the boss. With that, the battle came to an end. Our hero then turned to the corpse of the boss monster, and to his shock, no core was found. and just as he was about to tell Hojong Kim of his find, the man suddenly lost consciousness. The hero then turned to the rest of the party and was shocked to see all of them lying on the ground. The healer quickly realized that Hojong Kim was in a slumber rather than the embrace of death, and that the demon that he killed was in fact a fake. After crafting a stamina arrow, the hero began to think of how the real boss was still creeping in this very room. He then fired his 3 projectiles. Suddenly, one of the targets stood up and countered the arrow, while the other 2 managed to hit their targets. The hero then presented his excuses for firing the crossbow so suddenly and affirmed that the arrows were in fact buffs to the rogue, and while Isle expressed how surprised he was to see the hero healing using arrows, the quack explained how he had caught him in his trap. The rogue claimed that the doctor had it all wrong, and that his class required him to be agile and that he parried the arrow out of instinct, then pointed out how everyone was unconscious except the young man, making him call out the doctor for also being awake. The protagonist then began to recall how he was the only one to not drink the potions handed out by the rogue, who was left feeling shocked and alerted. He then summoned his knife, jumped into the air, and clashed with the young man, pointing out how the average rogue wouldn't use a dagger filled with dark magic, and that he must be the true boss of this dungeon. Upon hearing this, the young man's eyes widened, and called out our hero for being a clever adventurer. With that, the apostle of the forgotten deity Isle Crow revealed himself as the true boss of the ruins. This left our hero amazed, as he didn't expect him to actually be the one in charge, but a mere fake. The boss monster pointed out how he was now unable to lie, and how amazed he was to see the quack being the first to uncover him. Isle wanted to make our hero a live sacrifice like all the others as he stabbed himself in the hand, affirming that the only reason was for the sake of the one he worships. This made our hero wonder about the villain's body count. The boss then planted his foot firm onto the ground, before launching himself at high speed at our hero. With that, the 2 knives clashed once again. Our hero tried to take the edge by using his rock arrows, but the rogue parried them all with great ease. Isle then explained how he used to be a normal rogue before being chosen by his deity, and affirmed that it will be greatly pleased with the quack as a sacrifice, just like his previous party the day he killed them. This crazed speech made the hero realize that words wouldn't work with the dungeon boss. But just then, he realized something startling. As enormous magic circles appeared, the villain asked the hero to simply accept his death, making him wonder if they were drawn with the rogue's blood. Our hero found himself in the middle of one of the circles, as giant terrifying blood hands emerged from the ground that the worshipper aimed to use to sacrifice him. With that being said, the hero found himself being engulfed in the dark magic, but the evil sorcerer was left surprised as a bright light emerged from the circle. The man was then left shocked, as our hero emerged unscratched from his attack, pointing out how his excellent knife work was worthy of the rogue class. And as the spell began to dissipate, he pointed out how much of a shock all of this was. The man was left baffled upon seeing his pal fading away. He then decided to try sacrificing our hero once again, yet his spell was once again unable to touch him. Isle Crow was left utterly baffled, as the power granted by the one he worships was rendered useless, making the hero point out how religious he was. He then asked him about the box under the altar, and if the orb inside it was one of his possessions. The dungeon boss quickly began to panic after recognizing it as the Orb of Kirkershtel. This made the quack realize that it contains the power of a divinity and enhances magic defense and mana resistance, and was a divine artifact. The young man pointed out how the box was under a powerful seal, making our hero think of how it was made with dark magic, and that his holy water arrow had destroyed the seal at the start of the fight. Seeing this made the man grow even angrier, affirming that the forgotten one that he worships will soon return, and that he will make sure of it as he charged at our hero. Before starting to attack him relentlessly, Sun Yun Kang, who found himself in a tough situation, pointed out how religious the man was and how he was able to fight like a rogue. Seeing how much the villain cared about the orb, the quack tossed it into the air, daring him to retrieve it. This made Isle's attention shift completely towards the divine artifact, just as our hero had planned. He then used his mana thread to catch it before the villain did, and just as he retrieved it, he used his crossbow to craft a rock arrow, before finally managing to land a hit on the black magic user's head. Upon seeing this, the sorcerer used the skill Dark Thorns, which startled our hero. The quack realized that this skill wasn't meant to attack, but to defend the user while he caught his breath, and so he used his skill Incision in order to cut through the thorns as he charged towards the man. After grabbing a sample of the cursed plant, the man used it to craft a dark thorn arrow that he aimed at the dungeon boss. Isle looked in disbelief as the powerful arrows struck head-on. The dungeon boss was then defeated, and began to cry about his lord's orb, which shocked our hero, making him think of how the residents of this world are too attached to their religions. Isle then stated that according to the one he worships, our hero was being protected by a mysterious entity, making him think that he and it were one and the same. As Sun Yun Kang stated that he was an atheist, he began to think of how powerful Kirkershtel must truly be to be aware of the manager behind the system. But despite all, our hero had to confirm that he was granted great power, making the defeated dungeon boss point out how he will always want more. With that, the man fell to the ground as the quack stated that he wasn't a crazy man like him. Dr. Kang didn't adore the manager but had no choice but to work with it. And so he went to wake the rest of the party up as dark magic gathered around the defeated boss, who was left on the brink of death. The adventurer then began to regain consciousness, as Dr. Kang rushed to greet his confused friend. But just then, the sword woman let out a scream of horror upon seeing the rogue's body. Our hero then explained that their supposed ally was, in fact, the real boss monster, and that he was the one that saved them. After explaining everything to them, all were unable to believe that the rogue was the true monster, seeing the dark magic coming out of him. Ho-jung Kim asked Sun Yen Kang how he uncovered the sorcerer, so the quack explained how friendly people weren't trustworthy, and that one should always avoid anyone that is respectful and friendly for no apparent reason, which the Tang found ironic, seeing how the quack just described himself, which is why he uncovered Isle as another psychopath. The quack then asked the sorceress to draw out the biggest exit as fast as possible. Shurai then began to think of how our hero must be hiding a holy power equal to that of a powerful priest, and of how wise he seemed. This made her speculate that he was someone of high position within the church, and that it was for the best not to anger him. And so she agreed to his request with respect, which left him intrigued. With that being said, he turned to the priestess and asked her to spare him some of her time. According to our hero, corpses were something very common in this continent, yet leaving all of these dead people in these ruins would be immoral, who assumed that they were all forces of the dungeon. So the quack explained how dungeon monsters usually have the same face, and how these corpses must be those killed by Isle. The shy girl then claimed that this was a matter that she wanted to abort, seeing how her position as priestess wouldn't allow her to leave them here. Our hero, who had realized that the girl was too shy to speak her mind, asked if they could be of any assistance. The priestess then claimed that she would be pleased to see the rest of the party praying for the souls of the dead. With that, the corpses were now in a light circle. As the young girl began to pray to Iber, all prayed for these poor souls to find eternal rest. Just then, our hero received the notification from the system. Sun Yen Kang had achieved rest in peace, which could only be done by praying during a cleansing ritual. He was shocked to see that this earned him an achievement, and found himself earning the skill Calming Prayer upon checking the reward. Ho-jung Kim and Sun Yen Kang then both realized both of them received the same achievement. As the idea of transferring the bodies to the circle was proposed, our hero wished for a magic shroud to cover them all, so the swordswoman decided to take care of it. And so she used powerful magic to create a thin shroud, which left the party amazed, yet the girl tried her best to stay humble. And just as the sorceress signaled that all preparations were made, our hero turned his gaze to her and urged her to escape, yet she couldn't understand. With a swift movement of the dagger, the rogue stabbed the sorceress as she began to cough blood. All were left shocked and horrified, as Isle was supposed to have left this life. And seeing how nothing here permitted the use of necromancy, our hero realized that a way did exist. All of this was the doing of the one that the rogue worshipped, named Kirkerishtel. The doctor then asked the party to take the dead and the sorceress with them, while he and the priestess fought off the evil sorcerer, which left her terrified. Isle, who couldn't stand up straight, then charged in the blink of an eye, aiming for his life, only for him to block the thrust at the last second using his crossbow. Our hero struggled to repel the knife, and so he asked the terrified priestess for her help. After gathering her courage, the priestess hit the rogue with the skill Turn Undead. Seeing this, the dungeon monster tried to eliminate the terrified holy maiden first, only for him to be quickly countered by our hero and his crossbow. The quack then asked the girl to keep up the good work, and so she gathered her strength once again and struck the monster with the skill Turn Undead. This left Isle in great pain. He then looked up to the sky and made up his mind. The dungeon monster reached into his chest and ripped out his core while calling out the name of the one that he worships, and stating that the adventurer shall be his last sacrifice. This left the quack terrified, as the crazy man had destroyed the boss's core, leading to the dungeon's collapse. Sun Yen Kang urged his party to exit the dungeon right away, as the ceiling was about to collapse. A smile was drawn on the crazy man's face as he began to think of the one that he worships, before finally affirming that all he did was for his sake. With that, the rogue found himself being crushed by a giant boulder. Meanwhile, our heroes rushed to the exit. The doctor quickly asked the monk about the mage. According to the party leader, World had made a full recovery, yet there was a problem. The sorceress found herself in panic as her spell wasn't working. With that, our hero realized that they had fallen prey to Isle, seeing how the horror of this experience made Shura lose control of her magic. This allowed him to understand what he meant when he called them sacrifices. The monk was left mostly annoyed, as they had lost the only mage that could create an exit. Tears rolled down the mage's eyes, losing hope, seeing how there were no teleport scrolls to help them out. But just then, the protagonist realized something and pointed out to the terrified girl how the circle was complete and how it only needed enough magic to be activated. This made him realize that all hope wasn't lost. As he turned, Tina Putan understood what he meant, upon seeing how her magic was strong enough to recognize the different magic circles, and how she had enough skill to craft a magic shroud. Our hero realized that Tina was closer to a magic user than a melee fighter. The lady affirmed that she couldn't do it, when suddenly a piece of the wall was detached and almost crushed her in an instant. Sun Yen Kang assured the sword maiden that they were on the clock and that he would ask her once and for all to choose between helping and dying. Despite doubting herself, the girl finally agreed, leaving the doctor relieved, The spell drawn by the sorceress was a Trinity magic circle that required 2 magic users to activate. Originally, the girl would have used a clone spell to fill the 2 required spots, yet seeing how she was unable to fill either of them, the hero summoned a large mana potion given to him by Io and absorbed it before combining it with spray in order to fill the required spot. With that, the spell was finally activated. As the dungeon was about to collapse, the girl prayed for their success. The magic circle then took place right before the party could be crushed by a giant boulder. Suddenly, our hero woke up. He and the rest of the party found themselves in an unknown place. Seeing how the sorceress was overjoyed by their return to the continent, the doctor asked her about their whereabouts. The girl explained that they were in the west, which was the place of her affiliation, named the Crimson Magic Tower. As it was pointed out how they must be in Kamar upon hearing the name of the affiliation. Hojang Kim was left baffled, as Kamar was the name of a wealthy place. Also known as the city above the lake, it was the safest in the region due to this affiliation, which pushed mages and wealthy aristocrats to rush to move there. Kamar is also rumored to have rare books and research intel that were quite easy for one to get his hands on. The hero then began to look around, thinking of how he had never set foot in such a place before, when suddenly, someone approached the door. Men in robes walked towards the room, wondering who had arrived this late upon seeing the activation of the return coordinates. After opening the door, the man was left shocked. All were baffled by the presence of Shire. The quack asked the sorceress about their sudden reactions, and just as she was about to explain, someone rushed into the room and smacked the girl in the head with a staff. The man began to scream at the young girl for having the guts to return to the Crimson Magic Tower. The party watched on comfortably as the mages tried to calm down the aggressor. After that, all was explained to the one who manages the Crimson Magic Tower sector, named Tanthal Lurath, who had just beaten down the young mage. The manager then called out the girl for almost returning to a tower she fled from as an adventurer, stating that her mage life here bored her. He then turned to the quack, pointing out how he must have made quite the achievement, yet our hero humbly claimed that he only did what had to be done. With that being said, the man offered the party some rooms to rest for the night, while his staff took care of the corpses. Later that same night, our washed-up hero couldn't get himself to sleep, and just as he decided to go walking, he stumbled upon a mysterious individual who shouldn't have been here. This mysterious person turned out to be Tina, who was left startled by our hero. The girl explained how coming back to the magic tower made her feel nostalgic, making the hero speculate that she was also a mage, which she confirmed. Tina then apologized for stupidly hesitating in such a crucial moment back then. Yet our hero affirmed that she wasn't to blame, since it was her intervention that allowed them to escape. The girl thanked the quack for his kind words. Tina explained how her family pushed her to join the Golden Magic Tower upon seeing the great potential she had at a young age. And yet her heart leaned more towards the sword, which made her long for her sparring sessions with her cousin. Tina even pointed out how she wasn't very skilled regarding magic, making the hero curious if this was the reason behind her leaving. The girl confirmed, stating that she regrets not focusing on her mage career, seeing how weak she was as both a magic user and a sword wielder, making the quack realize that Tina had no faith in herself. Sun Yan Kang then explained that despite being ignorant about the subject, he was fluent in none of these categories and that one should do what he desires. He even suggested manipulation as a way to achieve her goal, which left her intrigued. According to our hero, one should use any way that is required in order to achieve his dream, which deeply touched the maiden. Sun Yim Kang affirmed that one should reach for his dream even when risking becoming a quack in the eyes of everyone else. The next day, the party was disbanded. The tank assumed that this was the best way for them to part ways, as the priestess went to finish the matter and the monk went to train. Our heroes then turned to Tina, as Hojong Kim suggested that she join them if she had nothing to do. The girl cheerfully affirmed that she would be pursuing a career as a magic swordswoman. Our hero was pleased to see the girl determined to chase this dream despite people badmouthing this career for being weak in both magic and swordsmanship, and so he handed her a letter with the name Ihan Choi on it, asking her to seek the mentioned place. The said man, friend of the quack and a powerful magic swordsman, and the coldest village of the north that the girl could just observe in order to get better. The moved lady thanked our hero from the bottom of her heart, and so she went on her way, affirming that she will make sure to send letters. Just as our heroes were about to go on their way, the sorceress suddenly stopped them. Shortly after, in the office of the manager of the Crimson Tower, the man apologized for the adventurer's day, affirmed that he wasn't bothered, and was intrigued by the presence of an overexcited man. This one cheerfully presented himself as Sishin, a professor from the Obsidian Magic Tower. The name of the place intrigued our hero, so the man explained how it was surnamed the Warlock's Tower, where the good use of dark magic was studied. Hero then recalled how dark magic was allowed to be used if the mage had a permit, despite the church firmly opposing it. The professor of the Red Tower explained that Sishin came back to see him after knowing of their latest adventure, as the dark mage asked them about the warlock they fought. Sishin was curious to see if they had any of his items, stating that he was willing to buy them all for the sake of his studies. As our hero began to think that he didn't want to give out the divine artifact, he suddenly remembered something, back then when he slammed the warlock with his crossbow. His dagger flew out of his hand and landed in their magic circle. With this dark item being in his possession, our hero presented it to the dark mage, who was left amazed. Upon seeing the evil power residing in it, the one from the Warlock Tower became determined to study it as he emptied his bag on the table. Sishin was determined to negotiate the dagger at any cost, but our hero realized that all he had to offer could only interest mages. Then a weird-looking toy caught his eye. Sun Yan Kang then turned it on, and it suddenly began to grow and sing, leaving our hero quite uncomfortable. This created a weird atmosphere within the room. The embarrassed magic professor turned off the lively music box gifted to him by his friend, explaining how this item turns mana in the air into stamina, which was confirmed to our hero upon seeing how his stamina bar was restored to the maximum. And so, to the major surprise, he decided to trade the dagger for the lively magic box. Later on, the healer explained how the tank added some items to their deal in order to clear his conscience to the tank, who stated selling these will fetch a good price. Our hero then opened the scroll that piqued his interest, as it was a recipe for an ice potion which pleased the quack, seeing how he needed to resupply himself with mixture and materials. Sun Yan Kang then suggested to Hojong Kim to prolong their stay here, which intrigued him. Dr. Kang explained how the manager of the tower allowed it. The mage stated that this was his way of thanking them for saving his pupil. This made Hojong Kim have second thoughts about his opinion regarding mages, as to him they assumed themselves superior to the others. And so the man agreed, stating how the magic tower is rumored to sell items found nowhere else, making the quack state that it was their stay's primary reason. Later on, at the potion shop of the Crimson Magic Tower, something caught Dr. Kang's attention as he was resupplying himself with stamina potions. As a potion was being made, the protagonist addressed its maker, pointing out that he shouldn't add these herbs to the potion. This made him look like an ignorant adventurer with no manners in the eyes of the mage. The man ignored the advice and added the leaves regardless. Dr. Kang urged his friend, who started to think that he was right about mages, to exit the shop. As they made their exit, the tank asked the healer for the reason behind his advice, and just after they walked a few steps away, a loud explosion emerged from the potion shop, and while Hojong Kim was left baffled, Sun Yan Kang affirmed that this was the main reason for it. The tank was left shocked upon witnessing the explosion, and was then left confused as he witnessed his friend charging in. Meanwhile, great havoc was wreaked inside the magic potion shop. One of the mages urged the other to use mana shield to protect themselves from the smoke that is potentially harmful. Being said, the mages created a shield of magic around them, but something unexpected happened, as the shield made out of magic began to dissipate. Upon witnessing this, all were left shocked and in panic, and so the magic users rushed to the exit, when suddenly, our protagonist arrived. As his friend blocked the exit, Sun Yan Kang affirmed that no one shall leave this place. He then recalled his advice to the young mage regarding the herb. The quack reassured the magic users that the incense herb wasn't harmful, which shocked the young mage upon hearing the name the man gave it. Our hero explained that the smoke wasn't poisonous, which reassured the mages. But as he stated that exposure would result in the mana inside their bodies melting, all were left in a great state of panic. The young mage then felt something coming up. He and the rest of his companions began to barf on the ground. All were left horrified by this incident, as it meant that the mana had exited their bodies and that they couldn't resort to magic now, which made them all rush to the exit in terror. Yet upon seeing this, the hero fired some arrows in order to calm them down, before deciding to remind them about their whereabouts. The young mage was then shocked as the man explained how they were in the middle of the Crimson Magic Tower, and how unwise it would be to deal with this incident once outside. Magic towers were institutions made for mages in order to study magic and sharpen their skills, meaning that they are made for numerous facilities that use magic for their research. The magicians quickly realized that opening the door would result in the countless facilities being ruined, which made them lose hope. Yet the quack showed them that there was a way to counter the smoke, and that they would remain unharmed if they consumed the cure and waited, which you could obviously make being a healer. Yet just as they urged him to begin cooking, the hero stated that countering the smoke was far more important than helping the mages, making a chill run down their spines. Becoming deprived of mana wasn't a lethal event, yet in the eyes of mages, it was a fate worse than death. Yet helping them wasn't his priority. With that being said, the mage gathered his courage, went on his knees and begged the man for the cure, along with the others, stating that they would do anything to make the smoke disappear. A dark smile appeared on our hero's face as moments like those made his career as a healer. Hojong Kim was curious if the mages would have to absorb all the smoke, stating that they didn't have time for it, despite how amusing it sounded. To their good fortune, this incident occurred in the magic potion shop. Our protagonist urged the mages to fetch him the ingredients. Each of the magicians was given a paper with the ingredient names on them. Just like that, our hero was given exactly what he needed, while thinking of how this problem must be handled in the shop despite their inability to touch the smoke. Our hero came up with the simple solution of changing the smoke's physical properties. Suddenly, Hojong Kim began to take off, making the hero realize that he must speed up the process, seeing how his ally was getting affected despite his weak magic. After powering it into the bottle, our hero used that for the skilled spray, thinking of how he must help Hojong Kim. As the purple mist began to spread out, small balls began to drop from the air. This shocked the mages, as well as the tank. Sun Yan Kang explained that this solution turned the materials into gel. He then cheerfully demanded them to get rid of the condensed substance. While cleaning, one of them tried to complain, but the others quickly tried to shut him up, fearing the quack's reaction. Just like that, the smoke had been handled and all were cured by the power of the incense herb antidote. Yet this little adventure resulted in the potion shop being in a very pitiful state, which made the mage apologize to him. The quack affirmed that they should present their excuses to the owner of the shop instead after cleaning it up. With that, the young mage pointed out how the quack mentioned an incense herb, which confused him, seeing how he was certain of using an aroma herb. He explained how it referred to aroma herbs that were transformed by concentrated mana, and how it mutates from a catalyst to a mana-melting herb. Our hero was then left shocked as the intrigue claimed that the magic tower shouldn't have a reason to grow such hazardous plants. She then explained how all of their supplies come from the cultivation room and how this herb's appearance must lead to an anomaly in the environment. As the girl explained how this room was controlled by a mana power system, the quack wished to know more about it. Shortly after, he and the confused tank found themselves rushing through the hallways of the magic tower. The protagonist explained that they needed to find the manager, as this problem might be far more critical than what they had expected. The incident at the potion shop had reached the professor. The man then stated that despite his desire to be with them, he couldn't due to the melting. With that being said, the manager accorded our three heroes the permission to enter the infected room. Sungin and Kang felt relieved to have met Shirei from the cultivation room entrance, as the girl affirmed that she searched for them to give them a tour of the tower. The entrance of the chamber in question was now inside. Upon entering it, the adventurers were left shocked, as the herb cultivation room took a wild and sinister aspect. The doctor then summoned his crossbow, stating how dangerous the situation seemed. It was then pointed out that all condition control in magic circles had been broken. According to the sorceress, the mana was oddly and highly concentrated, making her theorize that the issue was from the main magic circle. And while they were discussing the whereabouts of the said circle, something began to move. Our hero then noticed something attacking them, and so he grabbed Hojong Kim in order to push him out of harm's way. The tank was left curious about the nature of the attacker, yet the healer pointed out how obvious it was, as it was a plant turned into a monster named Martin Ivy. Shirei quickly used her spell Wind Cutter in order to quickly take out the monster, yet it only had little effect. The plant then tried to counterattack, only for the tank to comment at the last second in order to protect the girl. Hojong Kim was able to slice a part of Martin Ivy, when suddenly something began to form on the plant's wound. To everyone's shock, the monster grew another tentacle, and quickly used it to whip the sorceress and the tank. The quack was also impressed by this regeneration as he bombarded the monster with rock arrows. This maneuver allowed him to sever some of Martin Ivy's vines. As it began to regrow its missing parts, the tank found its advantage to be too unfair. Yet to his surprise, our hero pointed out that this time wasn't like the last one, stating how its regeneration was far faster after being sliced with a wind spell. This made the adventurer realize that the main cause was the magic of the attack, and these monsters were just plants fertilized with mana. According to our hero, Martin Ivy had the power to absorb magic. A fire spell was then launched at the monster, only for it to attack unfazed. This left the sorceress baffled, as even fire was pointless, while the tank pointed out how they wouldn't be able to win at this rate before proposing to retreat temporarily. But our hero affirmed that this plan was pointless, seeing how they possessed an item that could melt mana. Everyone was left baffled as the doctor created an incense herb gel arrow and quickly fired that into the mouth of the beast, after being forced to ingest the menaltic substance. Martin Ivy let out an impressive amount of mana smoke on the adventurers, rendering them magicless as well. Yet the quack affirmed that this wouldn't be a problem, as he made his crossbow vanish and made his dagger appear, stating that they had to kill it using the old methods. And so he firmly grabbed his blade, before swiftly inflicting a rain of cuts upon the plant monster. As the Martin Ivy let out an agonized scream, the hero pointed out how its regeneration speed was greatly reduced. He then urged the tank to take care of the plant's roots. Hojong Kim then stabbed the ground and used all of his strength, thinking of how only one of them could slay a monster without mana, before finally pulling out the plant from the ground and asking Dr. Kang to put an end to it. Our hero then jumped into the air, gathered his power within his blade, in order to use the all-cutting skill. Just like that, the beast was sliced in half, and with its defeat, the adventurers felt relieved. With that, the quack asked the sorceress to guide him towards the main magic circle. The center magic circle was in a pretty bad shape. This sight made our hero wonder about the reason behind it, so Shirai explained how it must have been overloaded by its own mana, and seeing how the magic was getting crushed by its own weight. As the magic circle became more and more unstable, the heroes quickly realized that it was soon to explode. Just like that, the protagonist and his friend found themselves in front of a time bomb. And while the tank began to panic, the healer asked the sorceress if there was any way to stop the magic from going in. The terrified lady affirmed that there isn't any way to do so, and that a normal magician couldn't even see the mana circuit, before stating that even your own touch could make it explode. The girl then proposed to escape as far as possible. Yet the doctor knew that running away would be pointless, seeing how an explosion fueled with such magic power could even reach those outside the tower. And so he used his observation skill in order to see the mana circuit. After taking a good look at the main mana circle, the quack was finally able to see the flow of mana. Tank and Measure then left shocked, as our hero made his way to the highly unstable main mana circle. The healer realized that this sensitive spot shouldn't be dealt with a normal attack, and so he summoned a particular item, which was the Orb of the Forgotten Divinity that increases one's magic defense and resistance against mana to deal with this situation. As the unstable circle struck our hero with powerful lightning bolts, his allies had no choice but to watch in horror. Yet despite the pain, he decided to go for the circuit joint, and so he firmly grabbed the orb, buried himself, and used the skill throw to launch his only shot. The Orb of the Forgotten hit the mana circle in its center, preventing any more mana from going inside it. The divine artifact then absorbed all the magic, before falling unscratched to the ground. The mage then opened her eyes, and was shocked to see that the unstable magic was gone. At first, she didn't understand what just happened, but a simple smile from our protagonist explained it all, and so she and the tank rushed to hug the man who remained unfazed. Sun Yun Kang felt thankful to his observation skill, as it allowed him to fully comprehend the orb's abilities. Later on, the manager of the tower was left shocked by the recent events, pointing out how the issue must be from the power system itself, as his students stated that the magic tower would soon crumble if similar issues occurred. The sorcerers urged for the master to grant them permission to investigate, seeing how the shield that protects the city will crumble if the tower falls. Yet the manager explained that he didn't have enough power to grant them permission to investigate the core of the tower. This made the situation quite challenging for our heroes, as the protagonist asked if there was someone with the necessary authority. The manager explained how they should turn to one of the deputy masters, that goes by the name of Sir Hybe. The old man then asked our hero, who entered his office, about what he saw from him, so our hero began to explain the problem. And after being done with the explanation, the master assumed that the healer wanted access to the mana center. And before our hero could even deny this assumption, the man burst out. Sir Hybe screamed at our hero for being insolent enough to have this idea, pointing out how the mana center had been made using the finest technology in the Crimson Magic Tower, and that it would remain protected even if the tower itself is destroyed. Our hero was then left baffled, as the man affirmed that the mana center was perfect as it is. Yet just as the mage and the tank tried to point out the problems that they had run into in the magic herb cultivation room, the old man began to shout at the young girl for badmouthing their facility's honor after deserting it. And as he firmly forbade them from entering the mana center, our hero coldly and calmly suggested to the old man to quickly start the evacuation and do something about the problem. The deputy master ignored our hero's words as he explained how this would benefit him too. Just like that, the three of them were kicked out of the office, leaving the sorceress and the tank utterly annoyed. And while our hero pointed out the man's strange behavior, the girl affirmed that she hated magicians, which left Hojang Kim utterly intrigued, the dark smile stating that all of it was meaningless, as back then he used his observational skill, revealing a near death that surrounded the old man. The old one then took a seat, and worriedly wondered how much was discovered. The deputy master grew worried that the youngsters discovered that the mana power system had become defective. Sir Hybe had ignored his role, seeing how he was preoccupied with the next master delegation ceremony, and realized that this incident could ruin his promotion. And so he decided to keep the matter a secret until he becomes master of the tower. Just then, he would quietly resolve the matter. Just then, the deputy master spotted a crack on the wall. To his surprise, a flash of light occurred. Before a great mana explosion, the mana began to burst out from everywhere, which made the ceiling crumble. Just then Sir Hybe got back to his senses, and found himself stuck under the rubble. When he tried to remove them by magic, he was suddenly electrocuted, making him realize that magic was circulating in the wrong way inside his body, and so he began to scream for help, feeling relieved to hear footsteps coming near. But to his shock, a familiar voice addressed him. Sun Yun Kang, who had just arrived, called, giving the deputy master necessary advice. The shocked old man then apologized for his rudeness, and begged our hero to help him. Dr. Kang theorized that the system must be leaking mana from broken places, thinking of how the man who completely ignored him back then was now shamelessly begging him for help. Dr. Kang was left disgusted by the man who asked to be saved before all the others. To the deputy master's shock, our hero stated that this wasn't worth his time. The old one then clenched his teeth as the hero insinuated that he was willing to make a deal in exchange for his life. And so Sir Hybe stated that he had something that would surely interest the quack. The old man claimed that he would give the hero the key to the mana center if he rescued him from under the rubble, pointing out how helping the others could only be done by stopping the center's mana from collapsing on itself. This made our hero realize that the old man was trading the life of everyone for his. He then found it pathetic that such an individual was a candidate to be the next head of the Magic Tower, and so he decided to enlighten him by pointing out how the explosions had lifted the seal on the mana center. The man quickly fell into despair after realizing that he had nothing left to trade. And just as he claimed that he had something that exceeds the key of the mana center, the quack affirmed that he would return to bargain later. Tears of disbelief rolled down the man's eyes upon seeing his only hope leaving to help the others. That being said, Sir Hyde was left abandoned to explode on his own, with that matter being settled. Our hero decided to check the outside in order to have a better view of the situation, when suddenly cries attracted his attention. To his shock, two children were still in the collapsing tower. He then asked the little one about the problem, and despite her best efforts to explain, her unstoppable cries forced our hero to resort to his skills in order to comprehend the situation. The quack was shocked to see calming prayer turning into a calming voice that allows the target's mind to be at ease, and theorized that the mutation was due to his lack of holy power. And so he used the said skill to calm the children down so they could finally explain to him the problem. A few seconds later, someone tried to carve his way through the rubble, blocking the entrance. Our hero finally managed to enter, thinking of how, according to the children, the floor exploded as they and their friend were studying, and how Rijai created a shield to ensure their escape when a bookshelf suddenly fell on her. Our hero prayed for the child's safety, when he suddenly noticed her lying under the ground under the bookshelf. As he approached her, the child asked him about his name. Rijai quickly deduced that the man who claimed to be here to help her was an adventurer based on his outfit. To his shock, the little girl displayed great wisdom, urging him to let her be and go rescue her friends. And after seeing how many painful injuries she had, he quickly realized that she was very selfless when it came down to her friends. This made him compare the brave little girl to the selfish old man as he tried to remove the rubble. The child asked the hero to stop as a simple contact between them would get him electrocuted by the mana as its flow gets reversed in his body. Yet, as our hero reached out his hand to her, the little one thought that she was to blame. Yet to her shock, the man who was completely fine used his skills to stop the bleeding despite being unable to deal with her pain. As the amazed Reiji asked the adventurer about his ability to use his powers when his mana is reversed, he cracked a gentle smile and affirmed that the reason behind this prowess was him being a quack while thinking of how he couldn't leave someone as bright as her behind. Our hero carried the little student on his back, rushing to get her out of harm's way. Reiji warned the man about the mana leaks that were getting fiercer, as our hero asked her to stay down for her safety. Sun Yun Kang and the injured one were now on the 12th floor, yet this plan needed him to be on the 9th floor to execute. But just then, he stopped mid-course. As to his surprise, the stairs had already crumbled, and just as he assumed that they were trapped here, he noticed a giant breach in the wall and asked the girl if she had acrophobia. The little lady asked the hero if such means were truly necessary, yet he just asked her to close her eyes and have faith in him, as he affirmed to the shivering one that he would surely guarantee her safety. Just like that, Sumi and Kang jumped from the 12th floor, right before the mana circuit overload caused a terrible explosion that they escaped at the last second. Just like that, the quack and the student found themselves in a free fall. Fond of serving the girl, the man noticed that she was no ordinary child, seeing how she was still conscious and didn't get overwhelmed by her emotions. According to our hero, losing such a young soul would be a great loss for the continent, and so he summoned his crossbow and used his power to create a messy hook bandage arrow that he fired on the spot in order to hit a wall. With that, the quack prevented the student and himself from falling to their deaths. The protagonist began to pray for the bandage to hold strong, and despite getting ripped at first, the cloth proved itself to be sturdy enough to endure both their weights. With that, our hero created his arrow from a damaged metal stick and a rope of bandages, which was a creation he never thought he'd have to make. Shortly after, the mages on the ground began to talk about what would happen next. The teacher then thanked the quack for saving her student or explained that she needed a healer since he only patched up her leg. Reiji asked the young man if he was heading for the mana center, which she confirmed seeing how people there needed his help. And so she handed him a paper from her homework despite being unsure if it would be of any utility. But just as he opened it, they were interrupted by the girl's friend Terrace and Lucy. The children quickly went to check on their classmate, who claimed to have been saved by the quack. Lucy and Terrace then began to cry their hearts out for putting their friend in such a situation. Just then, tears drew down the mature one's eyes upon seeing her friend's cries. Our hero was pleased to see that despite the girl's selfless behavior, she was still a child. With that being said, the healer made his way to the mana center. Shortly after, all who were inside, including the tank and the sorceress, found themselves unconscious on the ground. Seeing this left our hero confused, assuming that this was the doing of the power mana system. Quickly, he used his observation skill only to find that the mana circuit had blanched with the mages as well as Hojeon Kim and Shuri. Suddenly, the manager of the Crimson Tower urged him not to get any closer, explaining how the system had siphoned everyone's mana in an instant, before stating that they should flee as the situation had gotten out of control. When suddenly, the system itself began to head towards the quack healer, yet he was left unfazed, as a pawn trying to suck up his mana. The bonds were broken as he affirmed that this trick was useless against him, and so he loaded up a rock arrow in his crossbow and quickly fired it towards the core crystal, only for it to block it using the skill Mana Protector. And while the manager was left stunned by this choice of skill, our hero had already predicted this outcome. Now the mana power system had become a living being. With that being said, he used his incense herb gel arrows on the newborn monster. This allowed him to melt the shield around the core crystal, and just as he was getting pleased by his action, he was left utterly shocked. Upon seeing the melted mana bubble on the mana circuit, our hero quickly realized that the monster was reabsorbing the mana he had just lost. After seeing the crystal charge up a terrifying and powerful attack, the protagonist quickly realized that he had lost. And just like that, Sun Yun Kang was hit with the powerful skill Mana Bullet. The manager watched in horror as he witnessed the hero getting hit by what seemed like a life-ending attack, before asking him if he was harmed. Our hero, who was still breathing, said that he had fared that as the divine orb appeared in his hand. The young man was well aware that the divine artifact was the sole reason behind their survival, and that they were bound to lose if the monster kept absorbing mana. The monster then acquired a mana shield around its crystal, making the professor point out how the incense herb was now pointless, seeing the power system was using already melted mana as body parts. Yet the doctor affirmed that he had already predicted this outcome, and as the monster launched a rain of bullets upon him, he dashed towards it, while dodging every shot, before firing one of his own, in the direction of the mana bullets. And so the projectiles of both hero and monster clashed together, resulting in a great explosion. The molten mana then fell on the ground, which left the professor alarmed, seeing how the power system was using its extensions to absorb it back and how this will make it even more powerful. With that, he asked the quack about his plan. Seeing how the beast was using the melted mana to its advantage, our hero tossed his crossbow away, before taking a good grasp of the ground and jumping into the air. Sun Kang planned to take it down using the orb of the forgotten deity. He then unleashed a new attack named Kirkarash Tail Punch in order to break the melted shield. Yet in the eyes of the professor, this feat was done by bare hand, and so a barrage of attacks was unleashed on the crystal. And just as our hero was about to deliver the final hit, the monster began to reuse the melted mana, and after recollecting it once again, grew two giant arms to our hero's bafflement. The quack escaped the monster at the last second as it tried to grab him. And while the manager was blown away by what he had just witnessed, the hero began to think of how stubborn this monster was. The professor had a hard time believing that this atrocity had been born in their magic tower. The powerful monster then slammed the ground with its fist, unleashing a devastating shockwave. Sun Kang realized that the monster, who was now near death, was trying to save its own life by keeping up a distance between them. And so as he began to wonder about a way to take it down, he suddenly remembered the scroll given to him by the little girl and thought of it as the solution. Seeing how the beast was hungry for mana, our hero summoned his crossbow and charged it with mana potion arrows. The projectiles were shot on the wall as a distraction. This made the beast stop mid-attack, before rushing to its favorite treat. With that, the power system had fallen into our hero's trap. Suddenly, the arrows lost their light blue to a dark color, as even the system itself began to change colors. The monster couldn't comprehend it and tried to attack this odd phenomenon. Our hero was pleased by the scroll's performance. As he summoned his rock arrows, he pointed out how it was created by the little girl to corrupt mana, before shooting at the monster and hitting it right in the crystal. With that, the power system exploded. Our hero had finally won. Later on, in a great speech, it was pointed out how the mana power system was the cause of a great problem. Master Roker then expressed his gratitude towards the healer in front of everyone for saving the Crimson Magic Tower along with the city. The old man then asked the quack to state his wish, which greatly pleased him, as he requested the exclusive domain of the mental relaxation magic circle carpet, which left everyone shocked. And while the rest of the mages began to gossip about how important the requested item was, the master pointed out how it is passed down by those of the tower, and how one that is not of them could not get it regardless of his greatness, leaving our hero to an expected disappointment. And so by the power bestowed on him, Master Roker declared our protagonist an honorary member of the Crimson Magic Tower, affirming that despite not being a magician, he risked his life in order to save their tower, and that no help shall come their way in the future if they reject their present savior. This left our hero in utter shock. As once considered a fake healer with no healing skills, he now bore the title of a magicless fraud mage. The crowd then cheered as our hero accepted this honor, thinking of how he didn't mind it as long as it helped him attend to the others. Later on, Hojong Kim lay down, pointing out how exhausted he was, and how Sun Kang must be pleased to have become an honorary member who has his own room, so the quack stated that he didn't wish for it to be empty. Yap pointed out how he didn't mind it since it will become their storage room before proposing to Hojong Kim to fix their inventories before going on their way. As he opened his status window, our hero decided to settle some matters, as he earned a total of 6841 points for helping those injured during the recent incident, along with one achievement reward. Before taking a look at his main quest, and recalling the rogue who affirmed that he would one day get hungry for power, making Sun Kang think of how bad it is to interfere with godly matters. With that, the quack decided to take care of this matter another time, as he judged it wise not to cut big deals with the manager until more is revealed about it. The young man was then left stunned to unlock the achievement item slot for owning 3 items that weren't common. It then turned out that the item slot was a function in the status window that allowed him to use the effect of 3 items that were not equipped on him. This left our hero pleased, as it was perfect for the roach and the divine artifact, which were annoying to care for. He was then left curious about the existence of an achievement regarding the magic tower. Just as he was plunged into his own system, his friends remembered something and asked him if he was going to use the magic tower robe that was gifted to him. Yet our hero affirmed that it would not match him as a healer. And just as he thought that white was the better color, he suddenly realized something. Sun Kang then summoned his crimson emblem and wore the said robe that proved his belonging to the magic tower. Just like that, our hero had unlocked his wanted achievement, leaving him very pleased. After storing some of their items, some earthly stuff was summoned to the ground. Hojong Kim was intrigued as Sun Kang looked at him in an odd way. The doctor recalled how the tank stated to have been kidnapped while relaxing at home in pajamas, but she confirmed. The quack then stated that Hojong Kim had it better than him, for coming with earthly items despite it all being useless. Yet the man affirmed that his pillow wasn't, affirming that it was always with him regardless of the harsh conditions he had faced. The man was then left particularly triggered as he allowed his friend to take it, its scent infused. After glaring at a photo, the protagonist wondered if it wasn't better off in this storage room. A few moments later, the images bid farewell to the great heroes who saved them and made their way to visit Kamar. The tank pointed out how much more impressive it was than their village, as the healer stated that it was due to it being the home of rich individuals. Yet when they went to get a carriage, the old man affirmed that none were available now, making Hojong Kim, who hated sea travel, speculate that they had to go by boat. The hero then asked if this was a problem in this table. Yep, the man affirmed that it wasn't the case. Just then, they heard someone shouting nearby regarding the bridge. The man was screaming at the guard as he needed to get his carriage to Charon City. Yet, as the soldiers explained how the use of the bridge wasn't safe anymore due to the recent issues in the Crimson Tower, the man was having none of it. And in the leap of impatience, he pulled out his staff and used its power in order to create a path made out of ice. This left the guards feeling alerted, as well as the tank and the healer. Just then, movement appeared underwater, and from it, many emerged. Numerous fishmen appeared on the surface. The soldier then readied themselves to fight while the civilians began to run from the fishmen. Just like that, man and monster charged at each other. One of the fishmen gripped the sphere with its sharp teeth, quickly overwhelming the soldier. But just then, arrows were shot, hitting it in multiple spots. This left the guard shocked. The hero then reloaded his crossbow before shooting multiple fishmen once again. He then urged his friend, who used the temporary offensive buff Vampiric Craving, to stop the beasts from resurfacing. The thing then gathered all of its strength before destroying the ice bridge in one thrust. With that, the monsters were quickly defeated. Yet, to Hojong Kim's surprise, Sum Yen Kang affirmed that the real fight had just begun. Just then, one of the guards realized that one of his friends was injured. Yet, just as the young one affirmed that this was nothing serious, he noticed something weird. As scales began to grow on his skin, the guard let out a loud scream, making our hero point out how he was turning into a monster. The guard was horrified upon seeing how fast the infection was spreading. All were left in shock upon seeing the man mutating. This phenomenon turns a man into a fisherman after being infected by the sad monster's blood, forcing him to try and contaminate the other humans. One of the guards proposed to purify the young man's blood by using a healing skill, yet our hero affirmed that it would be pointless. The guards recognized the man who explained how healing magic was useless against blood-infected injuries as the one who helped them kill the monsters. Upon hearing this, cutting off the arm was proposed, yet the quack affirmed that the infection was too fast and that it would have no result. This made the young man fall into despair upon hearing that his problem had no solution. With that, he pulled out his sword and placed it on his neck, stating that if his fate was to live as a monster, he would rather die on the spot. The others were horrified at this sight, and just as the man began to end his own life, he was suddenly stopped by the white coat, who asked him to take it slowly. This left the young one confused as the quack affirmed that there must still be hope left to find a cure, and if the said remedy doesn't exist, he shall easily be the first one to make it. Shortly after, our hero dived into the water in front of everyone. According to Sung Yan Kang, the main ingredient for the cure was a fisherman's liver, yet seeing how they decay quickly on land, he had to take it from underwater. His use of the absorb skill on the one potion spared him the worry of breathing. Our hero had accumulated a total of 6841 roulette points, stating how his current skill set wasn't adequate for underwater combat. Our hero began to spend the roulette in hope of acquiring anything useful. Despite possessing a 100% accurate shot, our hero wished to keep it saved. Yet he had no choice but to cash out his star quest, seeing the solution to this problem required it. But just then, our hero dodged a shot to the head. The quack was now injured on the shoulder, realizing that this was a water cannon. Our hero didn't expect himself to stumble upon a gang of fishmen, and seeing how he didn't have time to close the distance, he charged up his crossbow and launched his hook shots, immediately hitting one of the beasts. With that, Sung Yen Kang began to pull a monster, before killing it in one slash, leaving him very pleased. Upon seeing this, the rest of the underwater monstrosities charged at our hero. Yet by launching some swift arrows, green blood began to mix with the water. Our hero managed to kill every single one of them. This ease made him realize that he wouldn't have to resort to his new black star skill. Yet one thing left him intrigued, as the monsters were oddly numerous. But just then he turned around and found himself in front of a rare Fitsta fishman. The rare beast then loaded his spear and attacked our hero using shockwave, and so he quickly resorted to the chain of his hook shot in order to pull his prey towards him and use it as a meat shield. For the quack who had just fled death assumed that the scale of the rare monster's pride was the reason behind the fishman's gathering, and that he was now on the clock as his wind potion had 5 minutes of effect left. The rare monster then used water cannon on our hero, making him realize that it could only use 2 powerful skills which were easy to dodge. This made him theorize that the monster was waiting for his air to run out, and so he decided to use the power of his crossbow in order to counter its tactics, as the beast let out a smile, before easily dodging the underwater arrow. Yet it was already too late, seeing how it had already scratched the rare monster. The rare fisherman was left stunned upon seeing that this arrow was a cure failure of his skin. With that, the beast was plunged into deep pain. Our amused hero assumed that it was enraged by the fact that he had used poison on it, as this was the cure failure crafted from the monster's liver, which despite not being lethal, should plunge the air monster into horrifying agony. With that being said, our hero loaded his crossbow and cashed out his star quest. Just like that, the Quacken acquired a new black star skill, a skill that was so powerful that its arrows made holes into the monster's body. After using the black star skill harpoon arrow, Samyam Kang urged the rare monster to give up its relic and die. Meanwhile, at the surface, the tank and the guards grew worried seeing how long the protagonist had been underwater. But just then, something began to resurface. All were left relieved upon seeing Samyam Kang taking a breath. As they asked him if he was injured, the wet hero walked out of the water, affirming that humans weren't meant to live underwater. The young guard was pleased to see the scales rapidly disappearing. All were amazed by the healer's prowess as the cured one affirmed that he was indebted to our hero. The quack then asked him to keep the city safe as a way to repay him back, when suddenly, a guard arrived carrying urgent news from the east and west gates. The healer couldn't believe it, as the man affirmed that the other two gates had been fighting the same type of monsters as them. Tormented screams were heard in the Kamar Guard infirmary. The guards were suffering physical and mental pain as they began to mutate. Our hero quickly barged in, before loading his crossbow with the Fishman mutation cure arrows and shooting at every single infected guard in the infirmary. With that, the cure began to take effect. Yet the tank realized that some had already been completely mutated, making the doctor explain how they were now beyond saving. The newly born Fishman grabbed his bed and threw it at our heroes, who easily managed to dodge it. Hojong Kim tried to slash it, yet the beast used its powerful teeth in order to break his blade, leaving him utterly amazed. With that, the hero used his new star skill in order to attack it. Just then, the tank noticed that the quack was in a tough spot, as two fishmen had managed to reach him. And seeing how his weapon was now broken, the man decided to use himself as a mid-shield, tanking the monster's bite. With that, Samyam Kang slammed the one behind him, before pointing his harpoon arrow at the monster, overpowering his friend and shooting it right in the head. With that, fell the last of them. Hojong Kim was annoyed by his broken sword, so Samyam Kang affirmed that he was using it pretty brutally. And when he proposed to cure him, the tank declined, stating that being bitten wasn't really a problem. Just then, the captain arrived and was devastated by the state of his men. The quack explained that some had been cured, and how some were already too deep in the infection to be saved. This left the captain with a bitter taste in his mouth regarding his fallen men. Later that day, our hero tried to stay humble as the captain thanked him for saving them from a great disaster. And just as Samyam Kang was about to discuss his reward, someone interrupted them. Individuals began to demand the cure from him. Our hero recognized them as the citizens who built the ice road. After using his observational skill, it turned out that none of them was harmed, which left him utterly intrigued. Yet when he pointed out how they were all fine, the citizens screamed that they were also present when the attack occurred and that they might get infected. They then loudly claimed that their lives were far more important than the soldiers. But seeing how their ice road was the cause of the assault on the southern gate, the hero let out an evil smile upon seeing how much they were deprived of shame. And so he accepted to grant them the cure for mutation, which left them pleased. The quack explained that he had enough potions for everyone upon seeing them arguing on who should get it first. Yet to their shock, the hero decided to be as honorless as them by charging 400,000 gold for a single spoon. Upon seeing how baffled they were, he decided to increase the price by another 100,000 gold. Before increasing it once again to everyone's shock, Samyam Kang shamelessly charged them 700,000 for a single spoon. Upon seeing this, the crowd grew frustrated and burst out at the doctor, accusing him of taking advantage of their city's misery, and so he tried to calm them down. All rich beggars then had the same idea, as our hero explained that everyone who shows our symptom will get a free ration. With that being said, all shamelessly began to claim that they were infected. Samyam Kang then claimed to not be able to distinguish the right symptoms from the fake ones, and so he reached into his pocket and pulled out a bottle, explaining that the cure would be given to anyone who drinks this fishman blood. The captain watched in awe as the man explained how he would surely give them the cure, stating how they would surely be infected upon drinking the green liquid. This left the crowd terrified, as the protagonist cheerfully asked them who shall be the first to get mutated. After saying those very words, the crowd began to have their doubts whether they would be given the cure or if it might even work. They then began to back out, before running away and pushing the experiment one at another. The captain was left amazed by how easily the doctor got rid of the beggars, making him point out how difficult clients were his specialty. Samyam Kang was left disappointed seeing how he was planning to exit the city today. He then asked the captain if there truly weren't any carriages out of the city, yet the man confirmed that there weren't any. And so the tank asked him about their next course of action. The hero, who had to resupply himself with potions, suggested spending the night in the city, so Hojong Kim proposed to get dinner first. Yet the quack stated that he wanted to appraise his relic first, making his friend congratulate him for slaying a rare monster whom he stated was weaker than the zombie. Shortly after, they entered the Kamar relic appraiser. The hero could tell that the shopkeeper who welcomed them was someone utterly despicable. Before explaining how he needed to see the value of a relic, the shopkeeper was left amazed as a rare relic was now in front of his eyes. As he pretended to do the evaluation, the hero could easily tell that this was nothing but a scheme. A lady then entered the room as he explained that this relic had nothing special. And just as the quack was about to physically discipline the shopkeeper, the lady rushed to him and punched him for trying to trick yet another client, as she held the shopkeeper in a chokehold. The lady apologized for the scammer's behavior and proposed to take a look at the said relic. The rare item then turned out to be a Fitzmarine Urkuff that increases one's stats while underwater while allowing him to see through the seas. The shopkeeper then congratulated the adventurers on obtaining such an item, explaining how wearing them increased their abilities. Hojong Kim then asked Sun Kang about the meaning of earcuff, so he explained to him how they were basically earrings that did need piercing to be worn. The hero then decided to take the earrings for himself rather than selling them, thinking of how they could come in handy in case of an underwater fight, while the shopkeeper began accepting her loss. He then gave the tank one of the earcuffs, before explaining to his intrigued friend how one per person was sufficient and how he would resort to it while fighting underwater. And while the touch Hojong Kim assumed that his friend cared about him, Sun Kang was in fact tired of being the only one fighting underwater. Once the tank pointed out how he needed to have it equipped in order to use it, he was left amazed as he introduced him to the achievement item slot that he unlocked by possessing the 3 items that were common. And so he used the item slot to stock the Moonlight Totem and his new earcuff. As the tank handed the hero the rare carpet that he had given him to unlock this achievement, the healer pointed out how they should help each other like this later. The heroes then decided to find a place to spend the night, so Hojong Kim proposed to go back to the magic tower. That the idea was quickly ditched, seeing how awkward it would be to go back after less than a day. But just then, someone overheard the Earthlings' conversation and approached them. Later that same night, as the shopkeeper made her way into the city, she had finally reached her house and was shocked to see Sun Kang and Hojong Kim sitting with her family at dinner. The lady was confused as to why her customers were here and assumed that the guard was fired, so he angrily explained how he was on a break. After pointing out how brother and sister looked alike, the mother explained that this was her son's savior who would be staying with them until he could exit Kamar. The quack began to think that this family wasn't normal, seeing its earliest generation serve in the Kamar Guard. Tyrell Cadler then explained that it would be scandalous to see the one who saved the guards sleeping outside, which shocked his sister Shale. Seeing how our hero was the one that everyone was talking about, the girl introduced herself and stated that the quack could stay as long as he pleased. Her brother was then left triggered upon hearing her giving him his room before explaining how he would return to the barracks. And while Sun Kang was amused, Hojong Kim pointed out how they truly seemed like brother and sister. Later that same night, our hero suddenly woke up, wondering about the time. Sun Kang then realized that something seemed weird. Upon seeing an intriguing mist on the horizon, he realized how it was all concentrated in one single spot. After recalling the watchtower of the Cadler residence, our hero decided to use it in order to have a better view. Sun Kang slowly opened the door and walked towards his destination, when suddenly a sword was lifted and placed right on his neck. Fear began to install itself in our hero's heart, who didn't have enough time to react, as his mysterious attacker asked for his name. The quack found himself in that rather tough situation, thinking of how hostile the man must be for physical threat to be his first action. Yet just as he began to summon his own weapon, the young guard explained to his uncle how this was Sun Kang. The protagonist then began to recall his weapon after seeing that the man realized that he was the one who saved his nephew. After that, the man expressed how sorry he was for almost hurting the one who helped his family member. Yet Dr. Kang affirmed to Hikaru Cadler that he wasn't to blame, seeing how he was an outsider inside his house. Hikaru explained how every morning he watches the lake and that despite people calling it useless, seeing how magic tower barriers were present, he did it because he wanted to protect his own with his own power, making our hero realize the reason behind the watchtower's presence. The quack spotted something upon using his observational skill, and summoned his crossbow before explaining to the old man how this tower wasn't pointless, leaving him intrigued. Sun Kang then used his skill, Harpoon Arrow, in the direction of the mist. Shortly after, a small flash of light occurred, followed by a back explosion. Upon seeing this, the hero realized something about the fog. Both uncle and nephew were left stunned, as that the fog turned out to be a way of concealing those who wanted to attack the city. Just like that, the city was caught by surprise. Cheryl asked the man to prepare themselves in order to prevent the beasts from entering Kamar. The old man firmly grasped his blade, before decapitating his first monster. His niece and nephew followed his footsteps and also began killing the monsters. The tank was shocked to see the entire Cadler house joining the battle, making the healer point out how they are a military family, and seeing how they were gifted new weapons. The healer, Kamar Silver's Glory, and the tank, who had Kamar Golden Glory, decided to join the fight as well. The monsters were many and fierce, yet Hojong Kim charged at them nonetheless and slayed them on the spot while pointing out how fish shouldn't be on land. Hojong Kim was even left amazed by his new weapon that almost tripled his damage. The Cadler siblings pointed out how monsters kept arriving on land. Sun Kang then realized that the monsters must be buffed, seeing how they weren't suffocating on the surface. Just then, he spotted magic users above the sea, and realized that the three fishermen sorcerers were the ones behind the attack. And so the healer decided to use the weapon's skill, Silver Glory, that allows it to use the moonlight effect. The effect of the moonlight will also make the blade respawn in its thrower's hand, before launching a successful surprise attack at one of the three mages. Sung Yun Kang realized slaying the sorcerers would cause the monsters to retreat. The fishermen were then left in a tough spot as the retired Cord ordered an all-out attack. And so the remaining two used their powers in order to chain a powerful spell. Just like that, the Fitsta giant crab emerged from the depths of the seas. And while the Earthlings began to fantasize about eating the crab, the shop owner reminded them that they had bigger matters to take care of. The crab then made its way onto the beach. The city defenders then decided to take it down before it could cause any damage. Yet the tank struggled to injure its tuck shell. After using his observational skill to assert the situation, the hero informed his friend that the monster was using the defensive power of its sturdy body protection. As the beast unleashed a powerful shockwave, the hero urged the rest to assert its weaknesses. As the guard found himself unable to escape, he suddenly spotted something. He urged his sister to flee from the giant crab, but the shopkeeper affirmed that she was going to defend the city with her life. The monster then easily shook her off, before trying to quickly stab her with its leg. Just as the girl assumed herself dead, the Earthlings quickly intervened and smashed the said leg to pieces. That's when our heroes realized the monster's weaknesses, and so they urged the Cattler house to target the legs. And so all charged at the monster to protect Kinamar as they were a military family. Just like that, the crustacean's limbs were destroyed, and with the two mage fishermen slain, all began to cheer joyfully for having achieved victory. Then the old man thanked the Earthlings on behalf of his family for them saving the city. The exhausted Sung Yun Kang affirmed that it was nothing as the man affirmed that he was indebted to them. Ho Jong Kim affirmed that they were still exhausted seeing how they didn't sleep enough. And so the family urged the two of them to get some sleep before their grand crab feast, which the Earthlings looked forward to. Sometime later, our hero finally woke up. He then asked the guard about the duration of his slumber, so Cyril explained how they had slept through the entirety of yesterday. This made the hero, who had slept 25 hours in a row, ask about the promised crab feast. Seeing how the crab was saved for his awakening, cups were banged later that day. Everyone was having a good time as the shopkeeper asked the Earthlings to enjoy themselves as much as possible, seeing how they were the stars of the event, and affirmed that the shovel in the tank's hand were exceptional as he gave it all the credit for their win. The lady explained that the Kamar Glory weapons were only granted to the best soldiers once a year. And as she explained how they could keep it, seeing how they already had many back home, the quack seemed to have noticed something, as a fragment of the dead crab began to shine. And so being intrigued, he went to check upon this odd glow. Sung Yun Kang was intrigued to see that it was the accessory item known as Fragment of the Peerless Crimson Carapace. And when he snatched it off, he was shocked to see the system recognize it as a precious artifact that could be gotten by taking the artifact of an A-rank monster or higher after slaying it. The quack was particularly surprised to see that he obtained an achievement and a skill that increases his chances of finding monster treasures. And so he decided to hold on to the fragment, seeing how no one would mind it. The retired guard then approached our hero, along with the captain of the guards of the South Gate. And when asked about the reason behind his presence, the man explained that he was sent by his superior to formally invite our heroes to visit the Lord of Kamar, who wished to thank them. Later that day, the tank and the healer arrived at the castle of Kamar and were welcomed by its owner. And while the old guard pointed out how much of a privilege it was to be invited, the tank asked the healer about the type of person the ruler of Kamar was. According to Sung Yun Kang, this man was a hardworking and humble mage of the Crimson Tower who should be the strongest. Yet the word should left Ho Jong Kim a little intrigued, but just as Dr. Kang was about to explain, the Lord of Kamar took a deep breath before crying his heart out about the monster who attacked his Kamar. The guard desperately tried to calm Gavin de Altigards, the ruler of Kamar. Ho Jong Kim watched in awe as the hero explained how this man was a crying coward. A little later, Gavin de Altigards explained how he always knew how wrong it was to rely on the barrier of the Crimson Tower, and how everyone complained about the budget when he suggested having men ready in such cases, making the hero claim that the guards were too few for Kamar. And so the ruler of the city turned to Sir Cattler and revealed that he wanted to create the first order of Knights of Kamar, leaving him surprised. The old guard was overjoyed to hear that his family was tasked to turn the guards into powerful knights. Ho Jong Kim congratulated the one crying with joy for the Cattler house promotion, making him explain how this was a generational dream come true for them. Upon seeing how Sir Cattler received such a prestigious promotion as a reward, Sung Yun Kang claimed that he and Ho Jong Kim should also receive something as valuable for their efforts in assisting the purge of the monster. This made Gavin de Altigards laugh, seeing how the hero tried to downplay the fact that the adventurers were the true saviors of Kamar. And so the man offered them a mountain of treasure, as well as a position working for his family. Yet to his utter shock, the quack refused the reward. Despite acknowledging the man's generosity and goodwill, the healer aimed to claim something very precious out of his reach. Dr. Kang explained to the crying man that he and his friend are from the Hind village, and that despite its size, it had great influence, seeing how it was an attaching point for travelers and adventurers who are interested in its nearby monsters. For these reasons, the Adventurers Guild built itself there a long time ago. While the Church of Iber is trying to gain power in Hind as well, the Lord of Kamar began to form an idea of what the hero was trying to say as he explained how odd it was to have only these two influential factions in the village. And so he demanded the creation of the Hind Village branch of the Magic Association. They said the organization was reserved for mages only, where one could buy and sell magical items as well as rent accommodation. The existence of a Magic Association branch in the village will greatly reduce the influence of the two other monopolizing organizations. The Lord began to tremble thinking about the operational expenses as the quack pointed out how the Crimson Tower will help him. He explained that he is his envoy. After taking a deep breath, the ruler of Kamar agreed to grant Samyam Kang his request, leaving Hojong Kim impressed. Dr. Kang then cheerfully asked for enough rations and funds to make it back to his village, to the ruler's shock. As the hero kept on making more demands, the Lord was left baffled and found himself drowning in an endless sea of requests, seeing how luxurious and expensive the trip that the healer was asking for seemed. So he decided to stop him, stating that the Magic Association's budget should have been reward enough. So the quack explained, and they were now discussing the reward of Hojong Kim, who claims to not be a mage. Gavin the Altigarts was left stunned as the tank explained that he didn't have any relation to the construction of the Hind branch. This left the old guard startled upon seeing the ruler of the city collapse before his eyes. Later on at the port, our hero was introduced to his guides. And so, as they departed from Kamar, the Cattler children gave them a warm goodbye. Our heroes began their peaceful trip back home, but couldn't help but notice the beauty of the crazy magic tower at this hour. Yet later on, the hero of the tank and the three guides found themselves in an unexpected life-threatening situation. 60 minutes earlier, the hero explained how they were going to cross the lake before continuing on land from Trakati village, and how they had to cross the enormous and shadowy red forest that was easy for strangers to get lost in. He turned to his guide, Valak, if he was from Trakati, which he confirmed, explaining that they went to the city in order to cure their daughter, and that neither his wife, Daisy, nor his daughter, Rudy, could return home to the rest of the children due to the lack of departing ships. The guide then explained that at their lowest, the lord of the city asked for guides to help the heroes who extracted a decent sum from him in the red forest. The seasickness spell worked miracles, seeing how Hojong Kim didn't feel dizzy at all. Shortly after, the hero decided to check his membership list, a list that increases the stats based on the designated affiliation. The hero gained another membership aside from the Crimson Magic Tower, as he and his friend were now considered as part of the original members of the Cattler Knightage. Despite not belonging to the military house in question, they ended up becoming knights after their deadly adventures with them. He didn't care about the title since rule number 6 in his book was use everything at your disposal. On a related matter, the quack received a new star mission that required gaining 10,000 points. Seeing how absurd it seemed, our hero began to wonder if he should just abandon it. Just then, the red forest appeared behind the horizon. This creeped Hojong Kim out upon seeing its unusual color. The tank then expressed how relieved he was to not have encountered any monsters on this trip. Yet Samyam Kang affirmed that they should have restrained themselves from uttering those words, seeing how it attracted bad luck. Suddenly, fish monsters emerged from the sea and began to attack Valak and his family. Upon seeing this, the hero quickly dashed forward and sliced the incoming monsters. The healer asked the guide to resume his way regardless of the monsters. Just then, the wife alerted the doctor of a new monster arriving. Upon seeing it rise above the water, the hero quickly summoned his crossbow as it was an unexpected camafin fish. The hero bombarded it with powerful shots, and just as the crew assumed that it was fleeing, the healer explained how this wasn't the case. Suddenly, the boat began to shake. The colossal fish had thrown the boat and its passengers high into the air. With that, the terrified tank began to cry his heart out. They were heading straight for the monster's jaws. The hero who acknowledged its cleverness despite its species. He then used his crossbow to create an ice potion arrow that froze the monster as well as the nearby water upon being fired. Hojong Kim was shocked to see the giant fish unable to move, and so upon being asked to destroy the ice, the man summoned his Kamar Golden Glory and struck it with a lightning skill. As the parents checked on their child, she affirmed being unharmed yet freezing, while her father wondered if this was the daily life of an adventurer. The tank was then left intrigued as the healer explained how something felt off. Samyam Kang explained how this monster normally stays in deep water away from sunlight, and seeing how it attacked at night when the sun was still off, the hero decided to use his observational skill. That revealed how the camafin fish, who had a smashed head and a frozen body, had met its end 3 days ago. Upon seeing that it was already dead, the hero decided to slash the corpse open, when suddenly a mysterious organism emerged out of it. The hero then explained to the confused tank how this was a floral parasite monster. This creature, who was mutated by powerful magic, seemed to be the one pulling the strings of the camafin fish. But our hero was left utterly intrigued as his observational skill pointed out how this extension would die out once the main body is slain. Suddenly, the ocean itself began to shake under their feet when something enormous began to surface. The presence of the boss monster made our hero realize why no achievement was earned. He tried to turn to Hojong Kim for assistance. Yet as it turns out, the man was rendered completely useless due to his seasickness. The monster then targeted its powerful tentacles on the family of 3 and quickly captured each one of them. Upon seeing this, the hero pulled out his crossbow in order to save the man. by using harpoon arrow to slice off the tentacles holding him and his wife. This left the hero annoyed as the little girl was still in the grasp of the ferocious boss monster, and so as it tried to pull the child into the sea. Ho Kim was watching the whole scene. With the reminder of his young daughter, the child in danger left and horrified. So he charged at the monster and tried to free the little ill child from the giant tentacles. Just like that, the both of them had been taken underwater. The healer was left baffled while the parents were left horrified at the sight of their little girl getting kidnapped by a horrifying beast. After seeing this, the mother wanted to rush in order to save her child, yet her husband held her down. Doctor used his skill, calming voice to remove the panic. Before explaining how he would return Rudy to them, the hero, who was shocked to see the tank jump in the water, realized that if nothing is done, both Ho Kim and the one he's trying to save will end up drowning, as the tank found himself overwhelmed by the persistent tentacles, which kept regrowing no matter how many times he sliced them off. If he were fighting the monster alone, the man could have escaped easily, yet the child he had to save made the matter only more challenging. And just as he was about to run out of oxygen, he was struck to see a light appear from the surface. Just like that, he and Rudy were struck by a wind potion arrow. Dr. Kang rushed to rescue the both of them, and so he quickly freed the tank and the girl by snatching off the tentacle, holding them hostage. Ho Kim felt overjoyed to see Sumli Kang arrive while the quack affirmed to his friend that he would always stay the same. After slashing the arms of the monster, the hero found himself in a pool of green blood. Ho Kim then warned him about the tentacle's regeneration, but as the injured arm was being covered in ice, the quack explained to his surprised friend that his new weapon wasn't a common item. Sun Kang found himself fortunate upon creating himself a knife from ice on the spot, having earned the random and ultra achievement known as Miracle DIY by crafting the knife that grants random enchantments. With that, the one in white urged his friend to take the child and go while he takes care of the monster. Random enchantment grants the newly made weapon a total of 2 effects, with the first being freeze that Sun Kang displayed when slashing off another tentacle. The monster then grabbed a rock and threw it at our hero, who acknowledged its smartness. The protagonist quickly resorted to his crossbow and then imbued it with the ice potion arrow. Before quickly firing at the rock, as the projectile was rendered frozen, the hero began to think of his second enchantment that allows him to quadruple the damage delivered to frozen targets. But just then, his attention was caught by a giant figure approaching him. The sequoia squid, where the main parasite resides, had finally appeared. And while our hero was pleased to finally meet it face to face, the monster quickly began to act, unleashing a powerful shockwave at the healer. The quack quickly recognized the skill. Suddenly, numerous smaller squids appeared and engulfed the hosts of the main parasite. Sun Kang quickly realized that the monster plant that is controlling all of them is using the smaller ones to protect the escaping main vessel. And just as the monster began to make its escape, an arrow was fired in its direction. The projectile then began to glow with a bright light. Our hero had resorted to his Water of Dawn arrow, thinking of how vessels were usually puppets in the hands of parasites and are still driven by instincts. All squids were left almost hypnotized, as one of the characteristics was the desire to approach the light. That left the parasite utterly confused. The hero then targeted it with a nice potion arrow. As the affected monster was now in reach, the protagonist bid it farewell, before cutting it into quite 2 pieces as the plant desperately tried to escape. As our hero decided to retrieve his holy arrow before resurfacing after his victory, he suddenly received a notification from the system. To his shock, he earned himself quite a lot of unexpected points. This left him confused, as slaying monsters shouldn't let him gain points. Yet, upon seeing the extensions after the death of the parasite's main body, our hero realized that he had indirectly helped the squids feel better. With that, numerous achievements were unlocked, which left him very pleased by this adventure. A few months later, our hero finally resurfaced to catch his breath. Sun Kang asked Ho Kim about their 3 guides, but dropped every hope of conversation upon seeing that the man was still seasick. After our heroes reached the beach, the red-headed family rushed to the quack. Worry installed itself in Dr. Kang's heart upon seeing the state of the little girl, feeling that he might not be able to save her in time. The couple asked about their daughter's state, so the doctor revealed how this was hypothermia, and how they should make her body temperature rise by wrapping her in a blanket after stripping her of her wet clothes while he creates a fire. But just then, the tank pointed out the weather. The doctor was utterly annoyed as the black cloud announced the rain, so he asked his guide about the proximity of the nearest village. So the man explained how the shortest route would take too much time. With Tricati not being an option, the quack suggested diving deeper into the forest in order to find somewhere to hide from the rain. As they made their way into the forest, the hero observed how the tree's color and the forest's name. As Ho Kim pointed out how everything around them was red, the guide explained that the local beasts and humans also shared the same trait, and that everyone in their village was a ginger. The lady then asked the adventurers to stay close, seeing how outsiders always get lost in these woods, making the tank assume that the path is confusing. Yet the lady affirmed that this wasn't the case, seeing how pointless the signs previously pointing to Tricati were, and how mages attribute this phenomenon to the forest's unique magic. Just then, the alerted healer asked everyone to stay in their position, as he summoned his weapon, leaving all confused. He then pointed the knife at the nearby bushes and demanded someone to reveal themselves. Upon seeing how he was discovered, the man quickly got out of his hiding spot, followed by the girl with him. Ho Kim was left confused as the man recognized them as the Red Road Gang. So he explains how they were road bandits of the forest and how one must have red hair to join them, as well as not assaulting those with the same characteristic. As the man pointed out how one could be allowed to join if he paints his head red, the tank realized that it was mostly a ginger club. The bandits then demanded the healer to obey in silence after he guessed that he was being taken away for the sake of a wounded person. Just as our hero began to think of how he should beat them quickly, seeing how they were in a rush to find shelter, he suddenly had an idea. He explained to the bandits how the little girl was, before leaving them stunned after claiming that they would be using their base to spend the night. The protagonist even ignored his anger as he pointed out the bad weather. Ho Kim decided to evacuate the family before the odd fight began. Dr. Kang then explained that their cooperation would be paid by not capturing them for the Adventurers Guild, which left the bandits filled with rage. And so the both of them charged at him at once. The healer quickly dodged the knives of the girl, before using his own. In order to smack her with the pommel, the quack dodged the thrust of the boy, before geeking him in the chest. The bandits, who were terribly overpowered, decided to use his secret weapon upon assuming that skills were the reason behind the hero's power. And just as the paper had been ripped, chains appeared from a circle and began to engulf our hero. The protagonist recognized them as mana-corrupting binds. With that, the boy charged at him, thinking that the doctor was powerless when deprived of his mana. To their shock, the magic-less hero easily broke out of the chains. With that, he punched the bandit in the face, knocking him out in one hit. Sun Kang then turned to the terrified girl and showed her his fist while cracking a gentle smile. After a quick beatdown, the defeated bandits decided to take our heroes to their base. A few moments later, the tank, the healer, and the redheads were in front of the hideout's entrance. After deactivating the seal, the rock moved away, uncovering a secret tunnel. The healer was left surprised upon entering the cave, as all bandits were lying on the ground and plunged in agony. Seeing their state made the man realize why the Red Road Gang tried to abduct a healer. The boy explained how his companions suddenly felt tremendous pain and how they assumed that a healer could help them out. Just then, someone inside the cave asked the healer about his identity, which was none other than Rosen, the bandit in command. But upon seeing him, our hero felt intrigue. Seeing how odd the man who expected one healer looked, Ho Kim prepared his shovel just in case, as the leader demanded an explanation behind the presence of numerous outsiders. The girl tried to come up with an excuse as it was too embarrassing to reveal that the hero had forced them to show him their hideout. But as Sun Kang explained the whole situation, the girl was left enraged. At seeing how they were demanded by the authorities, a man tried to oppose their stay. Yet the doctor explained that they would keep their location secret, before explaining how he was a healer who could help the members in pain. Dr. Kang proposed a deal to the man, stating that he would grant them his services in exchange for shelter. And so with a small voice, the bandit declared that the adventurers must be powerful for breaking into their hideout. And with a shaking tone, he accepted the proposition in exchange for not causing any damage. Seeing this made our hero realize that this man wasn't fit to lead, which made him wonder about the real chief's whereabouts. As little Rudy was placed warmly near the fire, the hero examined one of the patients and discovered that she didn't seem to be harmed or sick in any way. And so he decided to use his observational skill, only to discover that the lady had mental damage known as phantom pain, which could lead to permanent brain damage. Sun Kang then explained to Ho Kim how the patient was suffering from phantom pain. This term, that refers to agony in the place of a missing limb back on Earth, refers to a state of pain with no damage in this new world. The healer then explained that phantom pain, although not lethal, would keep on damaging one's mind as time passed as the agony itself increased. As he then affirmed that this non-lethal case was difficult to cure, the boss of the bandits began to lose all hope. So Sun Kang explained how they should take care of the reason behind the pain, and how they would need mentality and tranquility potions in order to treat it, seeing how it was due to mentality loss. But just as the quack explained how he could craft the required potions and how he was lacking the necessary ingredients, his friend pointed to a shelf full of plants and said these would suffice. Seeing how everything was ready, the hero realized that they were all cultivated in the forest. The hero then took a good look at the herbs and realized that he needed them all in order to create the treatment. So he asked Rosen about the available men. So he explained how he had 16 healthy bandits. Being satisfied with this answer, the quack ordered him and his crew to go into the Red Forest and gather him more ingredients. This stuff confused the man, seeing how ferocious Lorraine was outside. With that, the boy and the girl burst at our hero for being a freak healer commanding them. Upon hearing this, Sun Kang cracked his usual annoyed smile. Comments later, the red-haired bandits found themselves beaten up and gathering the necessary ingredients under the rain. When asked about his vast knowledge, the doctor explained that he was experienced in his domain and that he gathers data from the track records of his patients, earning him the praise of his friend. The doctor then demanded from the tank the bottle that he was holding. But as it suddenly slipped and rolled away from our heroes, the healer accused the tank of having shaky hands like old men, leaving him very annoyed. But as he was about to grab the bottle, Ho Kim seemed to have found something intriguing, and so he quickly took it to the protagonist. As the hero explained how this was a scarab, the tank remembered their last crusade inside the ruined dungeon, which was filled with these unpleasant insects. Seeing how numerous the insects were, Ho-jong Kim assumed that they were being collected. Yet his friend pointed out that they were too evolved for this. And so he used his observational skill, reviewing that it was a hibernating tabular scarab that would wake up in the right case. As Sun Yun Kang explained how this was a living being, the startled tank threw it away. The doctor was left intrigued, seeing how scarabs seemed to be living nearby and how their placement on the floor implied that they weren't being collected. Ho-jong Kim was left terrified as his friend suddenly asked him to start digging. Shortly after, the man was left disgusted as more bugs were uncovered and demanded an explanation from his friend, whose doubts were proven right. The quack explained that the entire cave must be filled with these bugs, and so he decided to have a long conversation with a boss bandit later on. As it kept on raining heavily outside, the hero had used the fresh material provided by the bandits in order to craft the cure, before asking Rosent to make his bandits take the medicine on time, leaving him deeply thankful. The man then began to whisper and apologize for misjudging our hero and doubting his skills. Upon hearing that he was using potions, to his shock, the two young bandits asked him to rest assured as they gave their comrades the antidote, explaining how they will do everything they can to make the other bandits feel better again. This made the doctor point out that even scums care about their own, while the boss explained how his members were very close. Just then, the man was left anxious as the hero explained how rare phantom pain is, and how it was normally located in the deadliest regions of the continent, like contaminated places and hard dungeons being one of the brutalest effects. Fear covered Rosent's face as the quack explained how unlikely it is for phantom pain to be abundantly present in a mere bandit hideout. Sun Yun Kang then implied that the leader was keeping a secret. Sun Yun Kang explained how it all seemed odd from the beginning, stating how casually the thieves used the expensive man contamination spell, which is something thieves wouldn't do seeing how much they were obsessed with money. Yet as Rosent tried to defend himself, the hero pointed at the dirt in the cave, explaining how everything in this forest was red, soft, and moist, except the cave, which was made of dry and hard sandstone, as if it didn't belong here. With that being said, he asked the thief for his true identity. The man decided to reveal everything. It asked our heroes to rescue them after he is done explaining. And while the tank was left intrigued, the healer explained that he will take this decision at the end of the explanation. The man explained how 3 months ago the cave appeared, and what was an empty space, and how it was filled with countless treasures and exotic alien beasts. Upon hearing this, they were left shocked as the man decided to confirm his doubts, revealing that this cave was somehow a dungeon. Rosent then explained how this type of place was called a transfer dungeon, which seemed familiar to the ears of the doctor. Just then, he recalled everything, and how there were special cases aside from the regular dungeons that exist in dimensions of their own, which would only be accessed by portals. How the dungeon itself would be transferred from its home world to this continent. This left the doctor stunned as many lifetimes had passed since something like this occurred. This made him also realize that the man's contamination spell was found in this dungeon, which the boss confirms, explaining how happy they were to find such items. Yet one day, everything changed for the worst as their youngest thief obtained a similar scroll. The little lady found herself fighting a mage of the city, and despite their usual shamelessness, in front of a stronger opponent, that day they had a chance. And so the girl used the mana contamination scroll, leaving the mages terrified. With that, the thieves of Trikati easily gained the edge on the powerful wizards of Komar. This made the earthly greed in the eyes of the thieves as they had won this fight, as the mages were rendered magicless. Rosent explained how this was a joyful day, seeing how they had finally defeated the mages they hated so much that the issue was their greed for better items. The mage then called how the girl made a discovery in the gods of the cave and explained how awakening it wouldn't just forever silence the mages, but would also allow them to control the entire city, leaving both heroes entirely shocked. Rosent, who began to panic, explained how his men were about to attack Kamar after this incident, unlike their usual selves. And so the chief of the bandits urged the adventurers to stop his friends. He then turned to the healer, asking for his decision. So Kang revealed that despite his dislike of mages, it would be a shame to let the city that he had saved recently fall so easily, as he remembered the friends he had made there. With that being said, the protagonist asked for the location of the one that was truly in charge. Shortly after, the tank was searching for the secret room. He called how they were tasked with taking out the chief and his executives. Yet the hero affirmed that there was a simple solution as he pointed at his own eyes, before using his observational skill on the path ahead, revealing the mana circle that served as the mark of the secret room. After pointing out the exact location to the tank, the latter began to dig the wall using his travel. But to the man's horror, more scarabs resided in the rocks, which our hero found obvious and natural. Despite having recognized the magic circle as the entrance, Ho-jong Kim had no idea on how to use it, and so the protagonist summoned his divine item that had a high mana resistance. Meanwhile, the members of the gang inside the hidden chamber were left intrigued by the sudden sound, when suddenly the wall began to crack. Just like that, the one in white burst into the room holding the golden globe to everyone's shock. The bandits were then left standing as the attacker introduced himself. With that, the thieves, who didn't expect to be found, decided to terminate the intruders.